Okay, here we are in DAK, March of 41. And the story so far, well, it's a little interesting. I've had a rules fuck up and some other factors which are creating something that's not quite the North Africa campaign you expect. The first thing is, hey, the Italian crossed the border. You expect them to get thrown back. They moved all the way to Marsa Matrua and started fighting there. Decided they couldn't take it, fell back to Sidi El Barani, tried to hold that. Weren't able to, but they were able to hold Bardia and Tobruk because the Brits were not getting enough supply. At least this is my hypothesis. The Brits were not getting the supplies they were supposed to over the rail net. They were getting half of what they were supposed to for a period of 3 months, actually. Running basically from November until February, I think. November, December, January, yeah. And that reduction in supplies was enough. The Brits just didn't have enough gas or shells, but to keep going and to push forward. Now, that's pretty bad. I decided, fine, we're in a what-if scenario. But over the course of February, the Italians start coming back. We got Rommel marching his way forward with no impediments in his way. We're beginning to ship the Ariete division into place using air transport, although it's lost a unit. And the Italians on their own are counterattacking the Brits. Now, the Brits have built up, well, they took the Italian defensive lines around Sidi El Barani and they improved them. And the historical scenario for DAK has the Brits have no headquarters at this point in the game. I think that's meant to represent the utter collapse of the British command in light of the sort of lightning fast attack coming forward. They're able to hold something very defensible like at Tobruk. They might be able to hold Marsa Matrua for that matter, but they would not be able to hold this line of forts across here. And I don't accept that the British command is taxed to the point that they would collapse the way it's represented in the DAK rules. I've got to pour my tea, hold on. So, removing this headquarters without any cause for it being removed, to me, is a form of scripting which insists that the British can't hold any line, basically, until they could conceivably hold Marsa Matrua, like I said. Or they could hold some line down across here, as long as they're on that rail net where they can keep pumping supplies into it. So anywhere from here over they could hold. But I just don't buy that their entire command structure falls apart the way that I think it's trying to be represented without cause. See, here's the thing. Historically, there's good cause for the British command falling apart, which is that they were spread out, down to about here, right? And it was basically just a lightning attack that pushed them back and took everything except Tobruk all at once. Well, that ain't what we're seeing here. First of all, the Italians are inching their way forward. The Germans aren't having any kind of lightning attack coming across. There's nothing that's doing this. And there's no rules to represent this or anything. I'm just fudging it and saying that's staying there at least until this line collapses. Once that line collapses, I actually don't need the headquarters anymore. And this line is actually possible to hold the coastal area. The key to it being that I have to hold the main road area and then this secondary road cutting across through here. Because there's no way to run the war through anything else. You've got this trail down here. Yeah, you can run supplies across a trail, but you can't get your trace supply that way. So basically, the Italians or the Axis could conceivably bypass here if they've got enough force to to hold these lines. But they don't have the forces right now to be attacking in both. We're also seeing what feels very much throughout the entire game like something other than armored warfare in the desert. The low supply levels on both sides encourage me to use non-armored, non-motorized forces. And, you know, the armor and the motorized stuff is just too expensive. You have to fuel that shit up. So it's easier if you have infantry, regular infantry units, to just attack with those for the most part. Yeah, it might be worth throwing in a big armored unit or something, and we'll see some of those starting to come in. You know, we see like a 7-point armored unit. Hey, that's pretty cool on its own. It ends up, if we look at the terrain effects chart, it ends up getting doubled in good terrain, okay, in open terrain. I don't know what Rocky is. Let's take a look and see. Where we got Rocky? Ba-dum-bum. I don't think there is any Rocky in here. Oh no, there we go. Well, we got gravel. Maybe that's Rocky. No, I don't think so. Well, we don't have these. So we have gravel. It's this shit here. I bet you that counts as Rocky. That might be what they mean. Because, yeah, they have the difference. Open, rocky, delta, swamp. Those are, you know, sort of the... We should also have sand, though. Sand desert here. Sand desert is open, but not good for armor. But, yeah, in the open or rocky terrain, which most of the map is open, you end up with doubled armor if it's not negated by counter armor, which might be more armor. It might be anti-tank guns, whatever. Well, that's worth it with one of those big units. But you know, it's not all that worthwhile when you're looking at one of these suckers. It still uses the same kind of combat values, etc., everywhere. Doubling it would be worthwhile. It probably isn't going to be doubled, though. If I've got the anti-tank units or whatever against it, it's probably going to be 1.5 times. So you're looking at a 3 strength point unit. Hey, if it's at the front, I'm going to use it. I'm gonna throw my ammo into it. And yeah, even these armored cars and stuff, I'll reduce that. I'm going to use it if it's at the front, but getting it to the front is going to cost me too much supply. And for that reason, the 7th Armored Division has not been all that effective. It also got some very unlucky checks. Another thing that's gone against the Brits across the whole game has been they haven't been holding air superiority. Now, right now, we've got contested air superiority. The Brits have a fighter plane. The Italians have more, but whatever. But there's been long periods where the Brits have had their fighters suppressed, at the point where maybe they could have been taking Tobruk or whatever, had I had enough supplies. Anyway, that's what we're going. We are playing something that is not feeling at all like the Desert War did during these periods. The Italians pressed their attack a little harder. The Brits were unable to push forward due to my mistaken lack of supply for them. And then I'm looking at this and wondering, yes. The Italians are on the offense, so they've been using their planes to try to bomb things. And now the Italians are back on the offensive, and the Germans are kind of dragging their heels. I did not rush them in as fast as I could have, because I didn't really need them here. I've got plenty of decent Italian stuff here, especially lots of Italian infantry. That, yeah, it uses up a fair amount of supply on attack, but it doesn't use up supply to move, and that's a big, big deal. And they're not that bad either. The only problem with them is they've got density, and density is problematic for bombardment. But, you know, with artillery not being able to fire defensive fire without a reserve marker, a defender who's withdrawing has trouble putting down a fire line. I guess, you know, I could motorize the artillery and have gotten the reserve marker, but again, I was low on supply, especially having, when my headquarters was up here, it couldn't draw from Mersa Matruh or from here. But now that I'm on the defensive, my headquarters is here. Without that headquarters, I wouldn't be able to draw supplies from anywhere other than Sidi Barrani, which is simply not reasonable. First of all, I'd be at the extent of my supply line here. Now, I could start shipping a dump into place and whatnot. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could get a dump to here, but that would also be at risk. And, you know, I just don't buy that I could get a viable defense of this entire line without this headquarters. I could actually probably have a viable defense of these guys, because this primary road here going back to Mersa Matruh is enough from here. 1, 2, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, not quite. This guy wouldn't quite be able to get it in supply, and he'd have to draw from Sidi Barrani. I could probably squeeze enough in, but I couldn't hold this. This isn't that important. This is really just the linchpin between those two, or it's just a connector between those two. It's actually probably not that important at all. I could give that space up, but it has a hedgehog in it, so I'm holding it. I got more hedgehogs to fall back to back here, and actually here as well. So I've got, you know, some depth to my defense. I might want to build something, say back here or something, or maybe here, but we'll see how things develop. Anyway, lots of words, not a lot of actual play. The Greek campaign's underway. A lot of forces are being withdrawn. I actually had to fudge that as well. I ended up pulling some units that weren't due to come in yet. I don't want to try to replace them with something else, but it wasn't clear to me. Like, units were being required to be withdrawn before they showed up on the map, and technically what should have happened is other units should have come off instead. We're just living with what I replaced that with. For the most part, it's fine. It means I have a couple of better quality units on the board, and it kind of makes sense, because basically the 2nd New Zealand Division was supposed to be withdrawn, and it wasn't all there yet. Well, instead of showing up in Egypt, it's been diverted. by the rules, as far as I can tell, what you have to do is you have to actually get them on the map before you have to divert them. And honestly, there may have been enough turns that I could fiddle that around, that I could wait and delay withdrawing until they showed up on the map. So it may be perfectly fine that they're there. I may actually be within the rules and doing well. And what it means is I have a couple extra units on the board right now that I didn't have to withdraw. Now, I could have delayed and not withdrawn everything I did anyway, but whatever. All right, I still have to set up what's due for this month. And yeah, you know, the mistakes and the decision that the Brits get to keep their headquarters, this is actually making me more invested in the game and more excited about it. You might think, well, you're getting such ahistorical results, and at least one person maybe a couple people have commented on this. Actually, I've had two different comments. One, I would have just started with I would have packed up this initial section of the game and started with Rommel enters scenario. And then the second one was about smaller games are cool because you can restart them without feeling as much harm. You know, I wouldn't. That's the first thing. I don't feel like this is so butchered. I feel like I'm getting a believable story of some sort, and a story that the OCS system is able to tell, and we can actually tell interesting things about the system that maybe we couldn't if this had flowed as it should. One thing I can tell you is that the removal of this headquarters without any cause is very, very disturbing, because it's the only British headquarters on the map at the time. Now, there's some horrible shit going on where one headquarters is replaced by another headquarters, is then replaced by another, and then like 2 turns later, this headquarters had to be removed. And not withdrawn to Greece, just removed. There's no foot dragging or anything allowed on that. It just comes off the map. Well, that's a bunch of fiddliness. And if none of these come back, I'm really, really unhappy about what we're seeing here. Anyway, we will make changes as needed when we face something like that. But I just believe that this headquarters, the way this headquarters was simply removed, takes away British options. Now, that may be the intention. The intention may be, look, if the Brits get to Tobruk or whatever, instead of pursuing the Italians and chasing them off the map and then getting sort of slammed into by incoming reinforcements, including the DAK, the Brits might just hole up in Tobruk and try to hold this whole line coming down. You can't really hold Tobruk because there's another road coming down here. But if you had a headquarters, you could drop down or drop down here, and you could hold in front of Tobruk, and you could actually create a fairly hefty defensive line that's much stronger than what I've got here. And it could be an attempt to dissuade the Brits from playing ahistorically if they're doing okay. But I feel like they're playing, the choices that they're making are reasonable ones given what has happened. I don't feel this intense desire to wash across the map. I feel like I've lost Operation Compass. I feel like the Italians won the initial attack. And honestly, I'm not even, like, if they took Marsa Matrua, the game's over and it's a victory. And you could make an argument that, hey, I'm not so sure the Germans would be called on until the Italians get flushed back. And there's a reasonable argument that this would just remain, the Italians there. We're not going to bend the game that much, but we're going to bend it as much as we have, and as much as we do in the future. Complaining about something else. I think I've noticed this before, but I didn't mention it. Okay, so for the March reinforcements, turn 1 in it, at the truck point, I get some Italians, get some Germans. But under Germans, they have this flak battalion. This is a Luftwaffe unit. And in terms of sorting, I sorted the Luftwaffe units separately from the rest of the Germans, which only makes sense. They're a different color and everything. I wish they were distinguished in the setup, because I went hunting first through all the Germans. I will get used to this. When I'm looking for flak battalions, they're definitely Luftwaffe. Obviously the Ramke division, but there are a couple of I don't know, I think these are paratroopers though. Yeah, there are a couple of paratrooper units that can come in as well, which will be easier to remember. The thing is that there are flak units under the regular German units, and it's just, I don't know, it took me a while to find. I also fucked up, no biggie, this machine gun unit here. I had one with the exact same values, just a different unit number, already on the board. I swapped them because, I don't know. Doesn't make a damn bit of difference, but yeah. They have some weird shit. So like, these reinforcements come in as normal reinforcements, but then they have this available March, 12th of March 41 and after, Germans. Okay, a comp group marker, sure. That can be placed, but this Panzer battalion is just like a normal reinforcement as far as I would think. What the fuck? Why available March? Why term it this way and not just give the turn? I don't know. I can't think of any reason why these are expressed differently, why this says 1 March 41 and this says available 12th March 41. There's stuff like that just throws me into a tizzy because I think that I'm doing something wrong. I don't think I am. I think it'll just, other than the comp group, which can be placed, however, but I think it can be brought in just as a new unit. Similar kind of weirdness here where February 41 Axis General is the first thing, there's no date, whereas here there's a date and then Axis General. It's just like, I think this is the first turn. And then here again, here we have this available 12th of February after, moved to the old box, even if some of the others, about battalions, with nothing under that, and then we drop down here and it's 12th February, and it's like, what? I also have Axis General 3 reserve markers. I brought in, I used Italian ones, but honestly, they're also German reserve markers. I don't think it makes a difference. I think you can utilize whichever ones you want to in that case. The comp groups have to be majority the force that they're related to, I believe. Means it's March, we're ready to go. It's Monday morning. It's supposed to rain today. It rained last night. It's kind of pretty in a weird sort of way. I like the way the clouds are, but unfortunately, I did not get a lot of sleep yet. It's much earlier than I usually get up. Woke up, had myself a snack to eat, and I think I'll be going back to bed, and I'll probably wake up and it'll be raining. But yeah, otherwise we're ready to start rocking. And forces will come in the new pool, and I have to clear out the old to get the news in. So at some point or another, I have to start using my shipping capability to bring forces in if I want my best and brightest reinforcements, like these trucks up here, to come in. And I don't think I'm allowed to airlift units from the new box either. I think I have to wait and pull units coming in. I'll have to airlift the units out of the old box first, and clear the old box before I can pull anything by any means onto the map. The only exception to that is probably air units. I think air units themselves come in because they can come in on the map. Conf groups might be the same thing. And maybe that's what they mean about this available March 12th and after by the Germans, is that these bypass anything else and just go into the old box, like it's stated here, but it's not stated here? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, and we're coming to a point where the Greek campaign is going to hit the automatic here, starting on turn 22. Since we've already hit that first automatic, that first set of actions and triggered relatively early Greek campaign, we don't keep rolling to see if it goes on. The next stage of the Greek campaign gets its own die rolls. That feels a little funky. I did catch from my packet of errata. There are a couple of reinforcement errata that I penciled in. Most of the rest I feel like I either got or understand. There's one weird thing which had to do with when this road converted over. The map is incorrect, the rules are correct, or something like that. I don't know. But yeah. All right. So I'm going to go back to sleep. I stood staring at the map a little bit. I'm not going to play, but and I looked at these oasis spaces, considering them in comparison. Again, I don't remember how Africa works. I played it once. Wasn't that impressed. My damn map is laminated, which made me unhappy. Makes it almost necessary that I use plexiglass on top of it, is what it does. But I got a cheap copy because of that. A cheap copy that's good otherwise. I can deal with those kind of trade-offs, I guess. But in Desert Fox, certainly, and I think in Africa as well, these guys are worth some victory points. Which means you want to hit them. You want to capture them. You want to go out of your way and, conduct some sort of operation to get them. They have some light supply value you can trace to them. But other than that, they serve no real purpose in the game. And I started thinking, well, I don't think I'd want to go down and capture these. I don't think they serve any value at all, right? Because victory in this game is not well defined. There's no victory point designation for it. It's pretty much, hey, eyeball the game and decide, whether or not you've won. And if, neither side has crossed their border in the entire game, yeah, you probably didn't really get a real victory either side. But, if the Axis is still up here challenging Alexandria or takes it, they've probably won. And if the Allies push them back, well, within the scope of the game, they do so. So, what do you do with that? I don't know. But you're probably not playing an OCS game just to get the victory. Although I know that there are some people who are competitive about these, who probably hate the Dean Essig sort of who won philosophy. I kind of like the debate it out after the game, you know, make your argument. But I started thinking, you know what? There's a lot of fucking map that's like wasted. I think they could get by with less total maps and turn them on their side. Now, obviously, you need to come down south here, but after the El Aguila area road, I think you could just have all the maps running in the other direction, lengthwise, and use a lot less paper. And just say, screw it, what's down here doesn't matter. You know, hey, maybe, you know, you commit some small forces. And the problem is, the game only, you know, the forces in the game are relatively small anyway. The question, though, is, what is the worth of coming down here, you know? It's not going to change the overall campaign. It's going to cost you resources to take any of these. And there's sort of no requirement, and I think no real argument for doing so. This is the focus. It's this coastal area, you know, and the main coastal road is the big deal. Where the secondary roads exist, they're of importance. All right, that's fine. But everything else, you might be able to do some outflankings. Like I said, down here, I might be able to, you know, outflank the British position there. And there are some other areas where maybe there's a possibility of doing something like that. But I think you could work with a lot less map, especially if you weren't worried about getting the map exactly aligned. So here we have a big rectangle for the map. If instead we took the Central Front series, you know, theory here, hey, have this map running this way, then have them kind of staggered along the coastline, but tilted sideways, I think you could probably get almost everything. And, you know, there's a lot back here. I kind of like that it's all back there. But, again, it's outside the scope of the campaign that historically happened. It might be impossible, though, to take Alexandria, as it is in Africa, without coming around from the side. And that may be the point in this one, is that, oh yeah, we've got to give that. But, you know, worst comes to worst, you could have another map going this way. Oh, I know people don't like maps that don't align perfectly, but, you know, after Central Front, when I first got that and saw the maps don't match up perfectly, you know, they're kind of shifted to each other. That's why I went with the modular table idea. Is I have a few games that are like that I really want to position differently than I have, and then once I do that, once I've made that decision for anything, I kind of feel like, yeah, now it's a good solution for everything, even though it would be really fucking annoying, you know. But this is a big game. You're unlikely to have a conference table big enough to fit this whole fucker on. If you do, it's probably a wide conference table. It's probably not just a one long table that holds the whole map. Just my guess. You know, it's not a dining room table game. It's a game that at CSWE you could set up, and you know, that's a place where you have a bunch of conference tables and you could configure them as you like. You could have one long one to handle most of it and then cut down, and that would give you more table space than I have for like extraneous stuff, so you don't need to do something like this. I like what I got there, although I have to fuck around with it whenever I do my shopping, or else go down and get another milk crate from my basement. I have a couple more left. Here I am ready to begin the first turn of March. Took a little bit of a nap. It's still, you know, but it's rained a little and whatever. I think I made the right choice not going anywhere. I was too fucking tired to do so anyhow. And I'm still too fucking tired. Like, I'm gonna play a turn and then take a nap. But the big decision I have to make right now, I think, is whether or not to commit anything from the Fleeting Corps. Now, I looked up what the Fleeting Corps commitment is, and the planes that are available, none of them are fighters. Makes sense. Anti-ship operations, whatever. Well, it's fighters that I really need. Sure, some of these better bombers here, like this Bf-110, I'd be able to bring another Bf-110 and other Junkers. They have a high defensive rating, so they'd be an annoyance for the British to intercept and deal with, but I honestly kind of feel like, first of all, I have the air superiority right now, do I not? First of all, why is everybody because the Italians knocked that out. Yeah. So I have the advantage in air right now. I have two fighters to the British one fighter. So I'm probably going to be able to deploy my bombers anyway. I would rather keep getting almost assured 2 SP per turn, is it now? Let's check. No, it's March. Now I'm getting 4 SP. So it might be worthwhile, but I think I have enough air superiority and enough power that I'm going to keep that bonus and keep my shipping coming in. Because I need to, speaking of which, I have to lose a couple of these. I forgot about that. The per month stuff is kind of hard to remember. Is that right? I think I may actually owe another one. Let's throw another one in because it's going to be rounded up. Yeah, the per month stuff really kind of screws me up to remember all that. You know, I've got all this placement and other stuff to do. But, and these as well go up. Okay. But the thing is, I think I have enough air power right now, and if I can mass more and more supplies here, I can shift them. I'm still not getting a lot of coastal shipping until it's always kind of sporadic. And this is incredibly scripted. Like, I want this to be more random because it's outside my control, but it's also, I don't think completely, so some of it should be based on events and such not. So like Barbarossa calls the Fleeting Corps out, but I'm just thinking there should be things that prevent, that affect this, that are in the random events and whatnot, and not just this fixed level of points that's coming through. There's a lot about the game that feels sort of that way, and I don't know, it feels just baked into place. Anyway, enough of that. I have not rolled any of the dice, so I'll do that to begin with. We have Rainstorm. Rainstorm is 2 maps. Map 2 is rainy. Not good, that's where some of my planes are. And map 1, which is going to fuck with some of my movement and transport over here. So that's going to be kind of a shit show for the Axis. Let's just do everything while I'm chattering here. I don't know. We get too much, don't we? Pearl Harbor, not yet. And then Odd is going to give it to the Italians. I could take a double turn right now, and there are definite advantages to that. So I think we shall do that. Because I want to break this line. Once the line breaks, I expect the British to fall back. That's a time when I can set them back up for another fall. I fucked up with my Italians. I should have done an overrun here at City Albrani. I don't know if it would have worked well. But I had him disordered. Could have hit him with an overrun attack, which would not have given the Brits a chance to fire their reserve off. Instead, I moved into place for a set-piece battle, bombed a couple of other units using planes, lost a plane in it. And now I'm stymied by those hits. Now, I may still want to attack. There are advantages to me not doing an overrun even if I'm disordered because, see, the thing is the overrun uses the better quality, the table that's more likely to give surprise to quality units, and I probably don't have the higher quality. But, yeah. And now the Brits could make things even worse if they had reserves here. But the only reserves they had are their artillery, which we don't want to talk about this. But yeah, there's nothing I can do. You know, like I can't throw in artillery and get something better. I could blow up a unit or something, but that's of minimal value. I do get to make an attack here, though, unless the Brits want to commit their bomber and get it shot down. So at least I get some ground on them, but I don't know how particularly advantageous that is. I'll think about that other attack. I could actually still bring 2 stacks in against City Albrani. Might be worth doing. I'm not going to get a reward for taking it, but, you know, I'll be able to start pushing them back further. As to movement, we're shipping more and more of these over because I don't think I can bring these in. It's not clear. Again, the wording is kind of weird there, reflects wording elsewhere. My plane can't do its shuttling operations at this point because of the rainstorms. I moved one unit, no, not that, one unit of the 5th Legion or whatever forward. Oh, this isn't worth it. I forgot about the slower movement. Fuck. I gotta shift some things back. But Rommel's main force is just walking because don't want to spend fuel. I would be such an evil commander. Sorry guys, we got plenty of trucks, but nah, you guys are hoofing it today. And for the next months. There's advantages to speeding things, but here's the thing. These guys aren't as good as they look. So they're 5 quality units. That's great. But they're at -1 until, and I just noticed this. Oh. Acclimation to the desert until October of 41. So they're about equivalent to the British units at this point. They don't become really great until later. So it's like, I don't want to hurry them that much. They're not that much better than the Italians, and the Italians have 4-point units too, so screw them. We got an incredibly lucky attack here. where we actually, although we were -1 on the surprise check, we ended up succeeding, getting a maximal surprise roll, and not a bad roll overall. We're here. AE4 deal 102. The Brits withdrew. The AE4 is not good enough. We aren't that high a quality. I could have. No, he's not a leader. I can't use them for that. And after thinking about those results, I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to expend a hell of a lot to launch an attack, disordered versus disordered. I know I'm going to be at like a -2 in that case. Looked over the quality of my troops. There's nothing over a 3 there. I did fix the movement rates on everything, and avoided spending some supply in certain cases. This truck is as far away as he can be and supply that, assuming no rain. If there's rain, well, actually, supplies doesn't get affected by the rain, if I recall correctly. So I guess I'm done with the Italian side of the turn. And this might be big. If I can garrison this and send forces chasing this way, it threatens that entire position, and the Brits have to fall back. If I can't control this and send forces forward, I've got an issue. But I think I've got enough here that I can keep chasing the 7th Armored on its way. The 7th Armored is just, it's had a failure this whole game. And that is actually part of the British problem, is that when I did actually try to attack with them, they got fucked in various ways, and now they're getting smashed up on the counterattack. Dark fast. It's not really late. It's just the raininess, which may mean, I can, obviously, if I can play at night with lights, I can play now with lights, but I kind of want to take a little break, even though it's a British side of the turn. I know that I've got a lot of decisions to make, so I'm going to put my dice over there to remind me and pause for a bit. I put on my teacup because there's a little bit of a difference from normal. So normally I drink one of two things. Basically either the store brand tea or some Tetley tea. I think it's Tetley, yeah. That it's like an English breakfast that I can get 2 of these mugs out of, basically, and it's cheaper than my store brand tea, for which I can get 1 of these mugs out of, and then it's just too weak. But I splurged and got myself some Twinings Earl Grey. I love the Twinings Earl Grey. It used to be the tea that when I didn't drink a lot of tea, it was what I drank. And I didn't mention my new pipe. I keep meaning to mention that. But it's always very expensive, right? And I'm sure it was very expensive to get this, but I was able to get 100 count. Well, yeah, it was very expensive. I don't remember. Yeah, it's raining. I think it was close to $10, right? So that's like 10 cents a bag, whereas my normal stuff is like 3 cents a bag, 3 to 4 cents for the store brand bags, I guess. And it's more for the Tetley per bag, but the bags have more power to them. Now these I managed to get multiple brews off of, but what I do is it's able to get the bergamot flavoring across two different brewings, but it's not able, the tea's not strong enough. So what I do is I've got one of the one of the Tetleys brewing back there, and then I would normally take that out and drop it in here and pour, pour new water over it and brew another cup out of that. But now I'm going to leave the Twinnings in as well, and so I get, the bergamot in with what is almost a strong enough tea anyway. This is how I operate, and I just feel like I have to explain these kind of things because of to the degree that you guys know me about various stuff and everything. At this point, in my video timing and whatnot, I know I get questions and whatnot, so I like to give more of the flavor of what the fuck I do, because I have a lot of weird little habits like that, like, brewing 2 cups out of 2 big mugs out of 1 tea bag. But the fact of the matter is it's strong enough in both of them, whereas most tea bags are not. And that's something to really kind of recommend the Tetley, is that it's good strong tea. Even the Twinnings is not as strong, and like Stash and stuff like that. I can get the tea itself, I can only get like 1 cup out of. But the bergamot oil, well, that seems to last a little. That seems to last through a second one. At least give me a little bit of the flavoring. Some of it coats the cup, and it just ends up in everything. I also do herbals sometimes, usually only when I'm sick, and those are pretty much. I'm lucky if I can get a full mug worth brewed out of one of them. I kind of go a little short on them because of that. We have that pipe. This is it. I have another of the same brand. It's I like the other one better. This is a different shape. The other one has I don't know, more of a billiard shape or whatever, I guess. I don't remember what the terms are, but it's got a nice curve to it. I've actually got a couple of pipes in that shape. These burn a little hot, and this one spills a little too much. Anyway, in terms of playing, I got to get the Brits done, but I feel like maybe playing so much last night actually kind of wore me out. Like, I'm really struggling, not just to play. I'm still excited about the game and I want to play, but I feel very fatigued in a way that I don't usually on a Monday or whatever, I just had a specific unit removal, 2 RHA artillery. That came from over here, not where I would have wanted to take an artillery from. I would want to take it from here, but I don't know what these represent. These guys, I think, just vaporize. These aren't the, hey, you've got 4 turns to get off the map. The 4 turns to get it off the map is that's just more complexity than I can cope with anyway. So, but I probably couldn't get this guy off the map in 4 turns, to be honest. But some of these removals are like unit break, equipment breakdowns and stuff like that. But if I'm servicing equipment on something that's equivalent to that, like this unit, which is exactly the same, I might have rather removed this one than that one. And I'm not going to be able to pay enough attention to the removals and whatnot to be able to plan, not my tactics, but sort of my force allocations at that level. I have enough trouble figuring out, I needed to get some artillery to support these guys. And so the Brits pull back. Ooh, this should not be disordered any longer. Get myself into a position where I'm still defending down to here, but I'm defending the main road line back on this side. I may have to pull out, but I'm not ready to make that commitment yet until the decision is made here. And what is the danger? The danger is that these come scooping up here. Do I know whether or not he has motorized troops there? I don't. Like, I could give up this space. I could also rip up the breastworks, I think. With ripping up hedgehogs is that you got to sit there and do it, and you're in front of the enemy. You know, I could rip up some of these back here, but in this particular case, I need this to screen these guns. So I think I'm going to stay there for another turn. We'll see. If the Italians have some fast motorized infantry or something, they can swing up here, grab this hog here, and start causing some real problems. This is why I don't know that it was wise to fall back that far, but you know, I'm trying to get some infantry to help cover the Mersa-Matrua route. If this thing breaks apart, it's possible a motorized unit could just run in and grab Mersa-Matrua. So I'm at a lot of, I feel like the Brits are in a lot of risk, and maybe this will go away. If their entire command looks like it's collapsing, I think I'll pull it out. You know, I'll say, okay, I'm convinced that they lost, you know, their command cohesion in the way that they historically did. Or at least that's what I assume it's meant to represent, is that whole headlong flight back towards Alexandria. Tuesday morning, not on enough sleep, but I've got some raid playing in the background. I got like 3 hours of sleep, and I'll be going back to bed. There's no question of that. But events, weather, none of either, which resolves these. Initiative still on the Italians' hands, and they do not want to give up going first because they're going to try an outflank situation, I think. See, it's a hard call because I don't have any motorized units here, so I can't go charging this way. I can't come up here and capture this. So actually, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna let the Brits go first. This will be the second turn, actually. And there's no particular, I have no particular edge on the Brits right now. In fact, if the Brits want to counterattack, I don't have my bombers, but I do have artillery up here that can support me, and I have my fighters in place. I can only use 2 of those 3 because Solom's a level 1, but I want it to deploy up front. Yeah, I think we can safely pass to them in the hopes of getting a double turn when it'll really count. May not have been a brilliant idea. The Brits had additional forces to throw down here and fill this hedgehog with. Put all my artillery on reserve, and where's my airplane? Airplane's fine. Okay. And I built another hedgehog down here at high cost, but no. Meanwhile, I'm schlepping stuff back and forth with the trucks. Now, a viewer of mine who is familiar with OCS as well as with, maybe not this particular game, but with the DAK in general at least. I think with this one in particular, to tell you the truth, you may have both, was talking to me about how you can use these trucks to sort of help supply your fueling needs. And you kind of can, and I've been cheating this, not cheating, but it feels gamey, right? But I've been trying to do this where I need to do extra movement. For example, with the 7th Armored, when I pushed them around up to there, the way I did that was I expended fuel off of the truck. That activates one unit. Okay, that unit's fueled up. Then the truck can move back, grab supplies, move back, supply another unit, and you can kind of see how, you know, you can get the fuels piecemeal through the driving back and forth. And it kind of feels gamey, but it's actually not. Because what you're doing is you're expressing that there's a continuous supply line of those trucks moving across that area, keeping the unit in place. A single truck doesn't feel like a lot, because all it can do is fuel up one unit. And if you've extended past your supply lines, you're still in trouble, which is why I say there's not really a lot of room back here, okay? It looks like there's tons of space on the board to maneuver in, but you gotta figure out a way to get the trucks, you know, to create dumps and stuff like that, or something. You can't just rely on what's on board a couple of trucks. It's not going to get you through. So a couple light units might be able to push here, but for the most part, you have to stick along the roadways. The Italians now have full supplies along the road, so that's no longer a real issue. But anyway, the Brits have managed to throw together something like a defensive line. But to be honest, the Italians were not going to be able to take advantage of it. I mean, they might have. So this could have gone forward and given him on a die roll a chance to slip up here. I didn't really think about that. The comp groups feel weird to me. They're like not normal to the system. But I think I'm done with the Brits. We got more troops showing up, Greeks moving forward, whatever. And I guess it's on to the Italians. So outside of the transition of forces just moving their way slowly across, the Italians set themselves up, make attacks from the south instead of cutting this way, because now that's blocked off. Couldn't really make it far enough in either case to launch an attack. Positioned ourselves to make a bunch of possible attacks. Only got successful air power in one location, but I have artillery, so there's a threat. So the Brits have to defend all three of their potential target hexes, which means, since their own air power is ineffectual, essentially, they ended up relying on artillery at 3 tokens a blast. That was the base number in each case, or base column in each case, not really number. And we got successful disorganizations in each case, which means the Italian attack is stopped. But the cost and supply is very high. At 3 tokens each, that's more than a defense would cost, right? A defense would cost only 2 tokens. It's less than an offensive would cost, though. So, and we are holding ground. Now, what do we produce each turn? We get 1 token here, 1 token here, and a full SP there. So we only get 6 tokens for free, but we also have trucks that are shifting materials up. So that's probably about the break-even point for us. Maybe a little less than the break-even point. So conceivably we could hold this line forever by using our artillery that way. The only way the Italians can get an advantage here that I see is, now it's the end of their turn, their disorders come off, it's the end of the turn. If I take a double turn and attempt, or not attempt, but just use overrun tactics, I can get attacks against which the Brits have no response. So that is a possibility. I think we're done with the turn, and I think it's time for me to go back to bed. I'm beginning to think that these guys are insufficient for me, and I may pull down some normal numerical counters, or I can't use supply markers, which have numbers on them that are useful here. I could use casualty or hedgehogs, both of which might be somewhat confusing, but I could just grab number counters from another game to represent which turn in the month that they fell. The problem is it's 2 months. Like, that's why the little chips work. I could use a combination of the two. I don't know. I'm leaving it as it is for now, but it was easy enough to remember early on, but now Buck has fallen, you know, it fell over in the later parts of last month. City Barani might conceivably fall sometime in the early part. I don't think it's going to matter. I think the 2 months is going to be obvious, right? Because if the Brits get chased away from stuff, I don't think they're coming back for a long time. And when they do come back, it seems highly unlikely that they're going to be repulsed. And especially repulsed, you know, sometime where it's going to be fuzzy. So I don't know. We actually had not a very good pull of supplies, but I forgot to ship supplies. Let me ship some supplies as well. Okay, nothing special this turn. Brits got the initiative. They can't afford to go second. I don't know if I can afford to stay where I am. I'm like in danger of the Italians moving units in and cutting my supplies off. Of course, I can ship supplies into City Barani. I can ship units out. So there's interesting options available, but it doesn't have a lot of port capacity. I have remarkably sticky fingers because I hold a rather longish, you can't see it, it's covered in vines and whatnot, piece of that tree up that was a lot lighter than I expected, but it was also a lot stickier than I expected. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have to think if I can hold this position, because this is, you know, I'm getting encroached and put in a kind of dangerous position. And I don't really see a point when I got fallback position back here. Sure, City Barani can fall, but you know, I'd rather not hold it until the supplies wear out. Words there, not wear out, until the supplies recharge and the Italians can take it. If I get a respite because they're waiting to capture it in order to get those 2 supply points, and that's going to put them out to around here or something, that's great, you know. I don't think they'll give that to me. The Brits pull back. I shipped 1 unit out and fueled up a lot of other units, costing me about as much as a turn of attacks does to withdraw. I needed to fuel up to be able to get out of here with the half movement because of being disordered. Now, that means, let me see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, sounds to me like I'm going to pull out, I think Wellington's Victory has counters that go above 9. There are other games that I could find that have 1 through 10s or whatever, that I can use to mark these guys a little bit better. Anyway, this looks like it's disordered. It's not. It's only the top 2 units that are disordered. I'm just being sloppy there. So otherwise, the Italians might want to try to do an overrun, not an overrun. They might want to try to do a reaction attack on that. Of course, if they do that, that would open them up to the barrage segment. However, that's in the reaction phase, and I don't have any artillery in reserve anymore. because I had to pull back. Although actually, I think some of this is. Let me see. These guys could still be in reserve. Let's put them there. Leaving the headquarters on for now, I don't feel like this is the kind of overall collapse that that more or less, you know, would have been required to have there be no headquarters whatsoever, like the scheduled withdrawals have. However, it is quite possible that I will get into a position where I remove that. But that's going to be my call. You know, it's not like I'm trying to game the system, and that's why I'm defending and falling back slowly. It may seem that way. It may have that same effect, but I just don't buy that what the British have done so far would justify that collapse. And if I end up giving them a better defense than they would get otherwise, let's look at the cost that they paid. They didn't get Tobruk. They didn't get that defensive bulwark that holds there. And as we see here, these little lines of hedgehogs, they don't guarantee much. And I'm actually worried about this one being fully surrounded. But, oh well. That would probably be a collapse if it is. All right. And we'll move to the Italian side. Bad news for the Brits. Disordered, surrounded, that's not going to be pleasant. I can use internal stocks and whatnot, but I may be losing some good units here. I just lost one on the bombardment, the aerial bombardment. The Italians finally got some reasonable replacement points. They got two men, which I'm going to actually ship to the front to refill those Italian divisions. You might say, what? Aren't Italian divisions worthless? Yeah, they are in Desert Fox, but I'm finding them somewhat functional here. I mean, 3 steps for 12 strength points. So it's 4 strength points a step, which is a regimental equivalent. Most of my regiments aren't in that quality. And I look over here, and sure, it could rebuild something like this, which might not be a bad idea. That's a full regiment, though. That might cost me 2 manpower. I don't know what the costs are for the divisions, actually. Let's take a look. Division step is 2 replacement points. An infantry regiment is probably 2 as well. So it's probably about equivalent. Yeah, you know, you've got such a menu here, right? So like these infantry battalions are just 1. But I don't think I have many battalions that are in very good shape. Machine gun battalions are just 1. Those tend to be about 3 points each, which is pretty good. Certainly better than the divisions. And I have machine gun units I could replace, but not great ones. This motorized regiment, that's going to probably be the first step of a division is painful. I don't see a motorized unit here. I don't know what the fuck a Korok battalion is, but I have one. It says KOR on it. I have no idea what it is. It doesn't, maybe it's got some special rules, but I don't think so. I'm not seeing infantry regiment here. Why am I not seeing that? Infantry brigade is just one manpower, so. I mean, if a brigade's just one manpower, I'm guessing a regiment is going to be the same. So actually rebuilding this would be not a bad move at all. And then I can replace that. That might not be a bad choice. Now this is motorized, though. I would think it would need some equipment, but it doesn't seem to. Let's replace that. Might have shipped that, but anyway, we're going to get on and move to the battle. But I do have to try to optimize across this. It's kind of painful. 50% times equipment. What the fuck does that mean? These, I think, use half an equipment. Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to say. Use half an equipment to build up. So yeah, it looks to me like infantry or GAF regiment or div step. No, that's going to cost 2. That's still not a bad deal. That's still better than the divisional units. We'll build that up. It's a good unit. I want to get it back on the field. It's got a 4 quality. But yeah, I've got, Rommel still walking because what the hell? Can't use fuel, man. And he's just not that good, He's not that valuable. I did have to boost his little tanks here, or armored cav, forward. I think they're worth pushing, to get them in the general area. But again, as for most of this Desert War that I'm playing under OCS with its, supply restrictions and everything, stuff that always has to use fuel is real painful to commit to. So I'm finding myself using motorized infantry, which can get me a little boost in movement, or even just foot infantry in this case, to be able to handle the operations right now. The idea of actually expending the kind of fuel that I need for armor. And this felt right to me in Burma. I felt like I didn't have any options in reluctant enemies. The paths were so channeled and the forces were fairly limited. And I don't feel like supply was a big problem there, but I don't remember all that well. But in Burma, it felt right that you didn't rely too heavily on your armor. Here, I feel like I'm committing a sacrilege by doing World War I style infantry attacks everywhere instead of using my armor. Now, the armor and that movement capability can be very valuable in terms of if I can set it up so that I have a supply line running to where I go, I can bypass the enemy and, destroy their position essentially. And it might be worth it for me to get some armor up here. Get some of that Italian stuff back here, up there, because I've got a lot of supplies in Tobruk. I'm getting shitloads of supply over here in Tripoli and still filtering units in. I'm getting more than I can transport out because my coastal transport sucks right now. It's 1, and it's not going to be good for most of the game. And my shipping capability is quite high, which means a lot of people are going to be walking one way or another to get to, and as I get late in the turn or in the month, and I might take that 1 quarter cost, the supply tax or whatever, I'll just ship a lot of my motorized stuff heading down. But right now, I don't feel like it would be wise for me to do it now because I'm getting a glut of supplies there already, and I know I don't need as many as I have. I know I'm not going to be able to ship as many as I have there, but I don't know. With me shipping trucks into here and getting more and more trucks running supplies out, I may be able to keep going. And it's not like the troops are all that helpful. I don't need the excess troops. They're just kind of a distraction to move around. They don't cost me supplies. Luckily, there's that. That's one thing that Desert Fox is painful about. If you have too big an army out there for your supply network, it starts to eat the supply network. There's nothing like that here. There's the eating off the map and whatnot, but in general, you've got trace supply, you're good. It takes that headache away from you. But it does mean that you have, like, you're committing more of your shipping to keeping your stuff in trace supply. And that's all kind of abstracted here, where it's handled in more detail in Desert Fox, and in a very, very elegant manner. I'm tempted to say I still think that's my favorite of the Desert games. Berg took everything that he learned not to do with Campaign North Africa and came up with something incredibly clever for a supply network world. It's a pain in the ass to handle mentally, but it requires less physical mechanical aspects than this does, with all its schlepping of supply points back and forth. And honestly, Africa 1 also requires that schlepping. Now, I may have said the opposite when I played Africa, because there's something really nice about the intuitive, I'm actually moving these supplies and I have to deal with them. But I gotta say, I'm growing fond of that limitation of the size of the force that you could even put into the field, which this doesn't really reflect at all. Anyway, I guess it's time to get to the battle. Combat is so complex in this system, and that's a DNSing thing. But I have to paw through these big stacks. I don't mind the complex combat in and of itself, all the different steps, the randomizing and stuff. I do mind having to paw through stacks. I really hate doing that, which, it's one of the things I don't like about operational games. I'm coming up with this odds chart and everything, and things that feel like it, like Napoleon's last battles, which I just saw while I was pulling Wellington's victory out. I'm like, yeah, those Zucker games, they just feel like fucking operational World War II stuff when it comes down to it, I'm doing these odds checks and stuff. It just, if you're using similar mechanisms between games, they start to feel like, yeah, there's nothing special there anymore. Here it feels like there's something special the way I'm shipping the supplies, even though it feels like I'm playing World War I. So the massive British artillery defense, I had to break it up 10-10-9, 2 tokens per defensive fire. I only got 1 success. That means the Italians are going to attack. And I don't know if they're going to attack with all of the units that are undisorganized. They could throw disorganized units in too for additional strength points. Yeah, I'm not using reserve movement to get it into that mess. In fact, I probably can't. I think I have like 1 unit in here. No. I have a unit back here that I could have slipped in, but it's not quite fast enough. I'd have to put it on its movement side. It would give me a non-disorganized unit, better quality, and dig this thing, maybe save this battle, but I don't want to do that. First of all, I had to make that choice before I did my bombardment, which is also, again, it's like, I'll take my luck with the bombardment. Yeah, that didn't work. Oops. And now it's too late. It's kind of exciting, so I want to do the die roll. The Italians are actually throwing in both of these sets. They're at -1 on the quality, even with the disorder, because of the hedgehog, whatever. And they lost the surprise roll. But they've got like 6-to-1 odds. So that'll put them on this column. And let's see how many shifts the Brits get. Only 1. So we're over here. Still at -1 on the die roll. We get an 8. We get a pretty good result, which is going to be an attacker option 1, defender lose 1 option 1. I probably want to take the hit on one of my units. I don't know what. Probably not the big divisions, because they're not coming back if I get them beat up. Of course, I don't know. I'm probably never going to rebuild them anyway. But the Brits take their option as a loss rather than falling back. Obviously, the Italians took their option. I did take one of the big divisions and knocked it out. It was better than losing something that's a better unit overall. Smaller, but better per weight, right? Even though it's cheap, it would be cheaper to replace, I think. But retreating would have cost me another step anyway. And I think I've got capabilities to like break out. First of all, those are infantry units. They can kind of squeeze their way through the zones of control. It's only trucks that have a real problem, if I recall correctly. There's also breakout rolls, which I avoid knowing. Let's see. Truck movement is a problem. Supply lines are a problem. Yeah. But I'm able to walk through the zone of control with my foot units for no effect, which means I can squeeze my way out of there. And that's all I'm asking for. But, you know, this is going to be threatened in the same sort of way. A defensive line, you can't have a trailing edge to it. That's becoming clear to me. All right. And that's the end of the Italian turn and the end of the turn overall. You can see I'm using some number counters. I pulled my Wellington's victory, as I mentioned, having looked at it. Yep. Okay. And might be the last play turn of the day, probably. Just had some food raids coming up, whatever. No weather, no events. Brits get the initiative, but they can't take advantage to flip to being last. They have to get these guys out of there. Let's abandon some more territory and excuse me. Resupply 4th Indian, which is all that's left. The Coldstream got called out. They were the other unit that was there. I could have taken them as a loss, but then I'd have to find some other unit. And that would screw up my withdrawals, right? If like I have to withdraw a unit that I've already lost or something, that confuses everything. And unlike in Desert Fox, this game doesn't have a good means of recording those things. So I pulled back, and this doesn't look very defensible. The Italians are going to smash me some more. Right now, this unit is the only reason I actually need this headquarters anymore. And so basically, if this line falls back or whatever, I think I'm going to remove that headquarters. It just didn't seem reasonable to me that the Brits should lose the line that they built simply because of something that wasn't happening. But I'm willing to accept that if this line falls apart, the command structure falls apart enough that there's absolutely no capability of any kind of counterattacks. of any significance, any kind of gaining ground, they'll have to rely on the supply sources from Mersa Matrua and the rail line. Speaking of which, the rail line, I got to be careful about this. I'm throwing a lot of supplies into there, and you know, I may want to start throwing them back here where there is a breastwork instead. So this turns are going to go there. I haven't done anything with my trucks. I probably should. I don't know what they're up to. They're in Mersa Matrua. That's not a bad place for me to drop supplies off in. So I'm going to keep throwing supplies into there because it's possible I might hold Mersa Matrua yet get cut off or something. And I want to make sure that things are safe. Now I could of course build myself another breastwork here for whatever value that is. This kind of obnoxious situation where I've got reserves here and here, but the markers can't be on top of everything, so I kind of have to tilt units to remind myself of what the hell is going on. I find that in a situation in this system, and I don't see any solution to it, but it is an annoyance factor to it, which kind of leads me towards the, I don't know about the dedicated reserving. First of all, I don't know about it in a lot of ways. I kind of like the idea of some earlier designs going back to Panzerkrieg that kind of, I think Panzerkrieg allowed this, where you had the attacker gets a move, or the phasing player gets a move, the defending player gets a reaction move, and then the phasing player gets their exploitation. Very similar to this, but the reaction move, you don't have to put a reserve marker down. It's just an assumed thing. It's part of your assumed movement allowance. The problem with that, of course, is this actually allows you to reflect the concept of withholding a reserve a little better, I think. I'm not sure, because if you think about time, the reserve seems to bend time in a way in which if everything is moving the same amount of, the same proportion of its total movement in different segments, well, you can bring units up to be in the reserve further than you could maybe here, but you probably should be able to. They might not be as prepped or whatever, but you know, just in terms of straight movement, it seems to make more sense to have those pulses, not to have, yeah, these units are dedicated to being a reserve. It sort of is emergent from the design itself. Now, why did I not bring my Brits in yet? I don't know. I think I found that I had to withdraw the Coldstream and then forgot about those guys. No, it's because these guys are Germans. Those, just as brown as the Brits. God, this is going to be fucking obnoxious when the Germans come to the front. I mean, the trucks are bad enough where, I mean, you know, the Brits are a little darker or something, but it's like, that was a horrible choice. And that is, you know, if DAK 2 was available for reasonable amounts, I would have bought it to begin with. But, you know, I might have upgraded to it. I doubt it, because I know, from what I understand, the two games are very, very similar. The big difference is really just, you know, a couple of the rules changes, but mainly it's that, and I think the ones that could be done have already been incorporated into the errata for DAK. And then a lot of like, let's make play simpler or easier or better. But you know, if I was a very, very wealthy person, well, okay. If I was the kind of person who didn't like pinch pennies no matter how wealthy I am, I could see myself even now like just saying, screw it, I'll pay the few $100 and get those gray counters instead of these stupid brown ones. That was a horrible decision, horrible. Especially since gray was used in previous games in the series, and it was just like, Well, yeah, but you know, the Germans wore kind of a brown uniform in the desert. Yeah, so did the Italians. You think they were running around in turquoise? Come on, man. You think the Egyptians are in this this fluorescent yellow? I have to cheat and pull this reserve marker off. I just can't seem to get it into my head that reserves are half strength, and you don't want them on the front line. And the thing is, you know, look, the Italians probably aren't going to overrun me, but the flexibility that I get from that reserve marker was so low anyhow that I would not do it if there's a penalty, you know. Yeah, forgot about something. Strat mode. You get to move it twice your combat strength, or twice your movement strength. Have not been doing that, and it would help some of these infantry especially, but you know, even the motorized stuff, the trucks can't use it, but the motorized stuff can move at twice the rate. Well, that explains why the Axis is taking so long to get their forces running across the field. And honestly, in a way, the Italian collapse, I'm guessing the Brits essentially use strat movement to get the movement allowances that they need to fling themselves forward. It's not affecting, you know, sort of the center of operations here, but it would be affecting this slow trickle of troops that's been coming in. Some of those could move a hell of a lot faster. What was I looking up in order to see that? Yeah, I was looking up fueling because I was getting worried. I don't know where the fuck it is. I thought it was under movement. But I was looking up fueling in order to see what that's based on. Formation, headquarters, single unit. Yeah, it's a token per unit, regardless of size or steps. Which is what I've been doing. And I was thinking, wait a minute, shouldn't that be regimental equivalents? I mean, come on, you know. Obviously, there aren't like motorized and mechanized divisions in the game as single counters. But when you start looking at, well, a battalion or a regiment or brigade moving costs the same, that feels kind of weird, but yeah. It might be helpful to slide across here or whatever. It becomes way too tempting a target. It only really makes sense when you're behind, you know, when you're way behind your friendly lines. So I threw some markers down there. We're going to see the Axis start to speed up its commitment. I'm okay with the delays we've had, along with all the other what-if type fuck-ups. Stuff like this could have, but... So it's kind of weird because some of these units, oh, I can't do it with the Germans. I can't do it with the Germans because they have to be in move mode to do it. Yeah, so I've got to kind of keep an eye on that because I would have to have things in movement mode. In the case of the Germans, I'm walking to save gas. God, I'm evil. You know, I mean, that would make such an awful command. Well, the trucks are going to be a little heavy. I think you guys can walk. How about you push the trucks, actually, so they don't have to use any fuel at all? Like, those trucks are, you know, with the unit, right? They're not just organic supply trucks. There's just trucks with the unit that are moving around and whatnot. But I'm like, nah, you can't use them. Too expensive. I don't know where the hell they actually would be if, like, the unit's marching off on this long trip. Like, they're somewhere, but they may not be with the unit, you know? Even though they'd be destroyed with the unit, you wouldn't get them back or not. But, I mean, you know, if they're traveling along with the units, they might as well be carrying the men. It's not that big a difference in gas. You know, the fuel cost is in moving the vehicles for the most part. So it feels kind of funky that, like, yeah, these are motorized units, but they can operate on foot. And I don't know. I feel like I'm cheating the game. Like, they should be only using this kind of movement when they're close to the enemy. But I have no great need for them, and they might as well walk, and they might as well get out and push the trucks as well. Italian fighter wing has taken significant losses. I lost all 3 fights. Now, 2 of them were at even, 1 was at -1, and I took a step loss on the 2 big guys. They can be combined and made into a force, a plane as good as that one, you know, again, on their next turn. But right now, it looks like I don't have air superiority anymore. Now, I can send my bombers in. Some of them have reasonable defensive values, like this thing, which the fighter, you know, has an even shot against, but at least I can do something. I've positioned most of my artillery down here for a strike in this direction, which means I feel kind of handcuffed. And maybe, well, I get to leave it up to the Brits. They get to decide whether or not to fire defensive fire at me before I get to choose to throw my artillery in. But yeah, I feel like I'm going into too much detail at this point in the game, but I don't know. You know, I also feel like people tell me, oh, it's great, it's a long video or whatever, and I enjoy chatting, and it excuses some of the tangents that I take if I'm actually spending a fair amount of time. You know, I'd play at about the same rate either way. So it would be like, just the videos would be shorter and probably a lot less game related, or they'd cover much larger periods of time and we wouldn't see much. Anyway, the Italian attacks, what about them? Well, they're kind of interesting. Moved up into position. The Brits fired their artillery and split it between these 2 units, disordering units from both of them. And then I threw my planes because there's no Italian fighter air force. Threw my planes in to hit this. They failed. I don't think I took flak. I mean, I rolled for it. I don't think I took flak for it. There's actually 2 planes there. I thought there was only 1. But I noted that I didn't do this yet for this turn. So I had to pull units out. Now, unfortunately, the units that were coming out are mainly 6th Australian. The 6th Australian has largely been killed. So I had to pull out units from other divisions, including like the 9th Australians that just came on the board and shit like that. So stuff like the Armored Car Company or battalion that was down here, and they're gone now. Called off to Greece. And again, I could leave them in a little longer, but I'll never fucking remember, right? Like, I would have to put all kind of markers down there and notes and all kind of shit like that. It's easier to just get them moving and say, fuck it. And, you know, they're all in range, although I probably had to spend a fuel for one of those things, the Armored Car Company. Italians did bomb with their sets of planes. They took some more attrition from that and knocked out the British fighter when they were intercepted. You know, the good plane was able to do that. But now I'm at the point where I get to decide on the artillery. I'm going to make a shot and see if I can make an advance there. Still continuing with my World War I techniques. And with the 1 attack, I threw in a disordered division just to give myself a little more oomph. Turned out, probably didn't need it. I'm thinking about the odds calculations. I think I would have gotten 2-1 either way. No surprise on either side. Ended up a really attritional attacker option 1, defender option 1. Both took their option. Brits don't want to give up the ground. Why? I don't know. I really don't know. But, you know, some effort was put by one of the players, I think the Italians, to build these hedgehogs, and I might as well take advantage of them while they're there. Things aren't going to get terribly better as I get closer to Mursa Matrua right now. And I think that's the end of this turn. I don't know. As we remove the disordered markers. I'm a little clumsier holding the camera in all cases, but I think worse with the tweezers than when I just have like a free hand. And, you know, I don't know why. It's just like kind of fucked up. And yeah, so I mean, the Italians aren't completely stopped anymore. They're pushing forward. The Brits, I don't feel like, you know, they're not collapsing the way they would have had to had they lost, had that gone away already. And so I feel like I'm getting the results I want, which is, look, the Brits should not, you know, if they hit a devoted defensive line, they should be able to try to take advantage of it. And this said no. And I'm okay with the idea that, like, if I lose that defensive line, then I do have to collapse onto a supply source, and nothing more than that. I know that I'm getting confused at times. So like this truck up here, I thought was a full point truck. And then when I found the full point truck that the Axis had, I was like, wait, didn't I already move that? No, I didn't. I had moved this, and there's a lot of kind of fuzziness going on in my head at this point, which means it's a good time for me to get away from the game. And it is well past time for me to be playing Raid. This turn took a long time. I'm not sure why. It's good that I'm exposing as much as I am, because I'm getting some feedback again from somebody who's played a lot of OCS that's very helpful in terms of me not fucking up. Now, there were things I wasn't sure about, and I couldn't, maybe because I'm just so disorganized in the brain or whatever, find the resource I wanted for that. So I've been shipping armored units in using this airplane, and that is illegitimate. According to him, I am looking it up right now. Air transport is 14.9. You can supply supply points and combat units that are in move mode with a 10 or less leg movement point. I've been flying tanks in, and, you know, I mean, like it's a C-130 or something that I'm using here. Oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about what these planes likely are. It did vaguely trouble me. That's illicit, and I'm going to stop doing it, but I can't really undo it. The Italians are getting a nice jump off of that, but in some other ways, maybe it's not that big a deal. I'm trying to work my way through his comments. They're big comments, and they're very, very helpful to me. The other one, these guys, that's not one token. The organic trucks are a full supply point. So they can fuel up the whole division. Now, they can't fuel up independent units in this game, but in normal OCS they would be able to. I didn't even fucking see that. Because of the full and not full sides of them, I read them as being the same as, I mean, I can show you, but basically, the units that have a 1 token supply, or a 3 token in this game, actually. I think they got rid of those, I don't know. Have a full, not full side. And I just have been reading them the same way because they look the same. So that's that. I'm gonna go check, see if there's anything else really salient there. These things would have had a big effect. There's no question. Now, I'm not gonna clear it up and start over again. This is probably the one playthrough I get of DAK in my lifetime. But depending on how I feel about it, I may break into some of those damn East Front games or something. It's going to be a long time before I do the West Front one. That one scares the living crap out of me. But yeah, okay, I'll be back perhaps. Other issue came to rounding the combat odds, which, oh. And he's brought this up before, and I didn't understand it. So you maintain all the fractions before you get to the calculator and get your division. You get a point total, and final odds column, yeah. Determine the odds determination. Divide both by the smaller of them and apply the rounding rule, 4.2. Let's see how that works. I think I understand what he's saying. Round the final odds in combat, but do not round fractional strengths prior to determining the odds. Fractional barrage factors are combined and then rounded to determine the barrage count. Never round fractional movement allowances. So 3 units attack with a modified strengths. Yeah. Okay. So I think what he's saying is that I round up to a whole number, but I don't deal with rounding on the chart where there aren't whole numbers. So like, so for example, if I've got, I wouldn't do this because here's what I would get. So if I've got 5 to 1, between 5 to 1 and 7 to 1, there's a 6 to 1 odds that's not in there. I wouldn't round up from like 5.9 to 7 to 1. But I would round from, the way I was doing it, I would round from 6 to 1 to 7 to 1. That's not legitimate. It's actually from 6.5 to 7 to 1. So this range is from 5 to 1, essentially to 6.5 to 1. Just as an example of where I was making things a little wrong. I don't think it's that big a deal, again, because the combat chart is so smooth and there's so much randomness baked into it. I mean, I'm trying to catch all of these things. Now, he did bring up that I should be using the 7th Armored for overruns. Well, I've gotten them pretty trashed. And not just because I wasn't doing overruns. They got some really, really bad die rolls. But I'm sure that my usage of this incredibly powerful unit, by taking it into the regular attacks, could have done more damage, but had I done overruns, it would have actually improved the chance of defender surprise, and I think that's part of what went against me, to be honest. Now, it's possible I got a no surprise result, and when I was, hoping for a surprise or something like that, and then got a shitty roll on here, and maybe some of my not using them for overruns provided me with some penalties. The other thing is, for the normal fighting, and I've brought this up already, there is an advantage to doing an overrun. and it's an advantage that's hard to take advantage of with infantry and World War I tactics like I've been using. That advantage is that the defender doesn't really get a chance, well, they don't get a chance to respond with artillery fire or bombers. But if you want to do them, you're not going to have them disorganized in this part of the campaign. Later on, and I don't know when it happens, I think the Germans get hip shots actually throughout. And the Brits get them at some point or another. And we could take a quick look at what that's going to be like. What do we got? We got special rules. Oh, there's just so much to remember, man. German units conduct hip shoots, Italian air units cannot. But I need a German spotter to do a hip shot. They call them hip shoot. I want to call it hip shot because grammar. Even though it's a term of the game, essentially. The German units need a German spotter to do the hip shots, so that's not something that I would have been able to do yet. For the Allies, they don't have it until September 41, until October 41, at which point the Commonwealth has it. The US won't, which I find really kind of interesting. So they're kind of like Italians. I don't know. Are their units green? But anyway, yeah, that's a couple of things that I wanted to catch out of the notes that I've been given so far on this by a much more experienced player of the system. I find that, I find it hard to tackle the large posts because I have the same kind of problems that make it difficult for me to tackle a large rule set. But it's worse because it's off the computer. But it is really, really helpful towards starting to get towards getting the game right. Now, what we've seen so far, it's not how the system should play out. But I'm okay with that. I really am. Instead of like the thing I'm definitely not going to be able to do is clean it up and start over again. I don't have that in me. But maybe I do have enough in me to learn some of these things, certainly to bring them forward later into this game. But if I do end up playing any others, maybe it'll be in a short enough time that I'll remember these problems. So actually, this is kind of a payoff to going into as much detail as I am, is that I'm able to see where I'm fucking up by the response that I'm getting. And that's really kind of sweet, actually. Because that's the kind of thing, with a shorter game, there's just not the turnaround time, right? Like, if I fuck something big up or even a bunch of small things or whatever in a much smaller game, the game's over in a couple of weeks, even with my slow style of play. And I just don't have the time to try to turn it around and start to really get the system down. Of course, with some of those type of games, maybe there's a lot of scenarios. And so I play, I'm thinking something like musket and pike or something like that. If I show a lot of detail on that and get called out on, yeah, you're fucking everything up. And he's being really nice about it. But it's the truth. I'm fucking everything up. As I play through the scenarios, I may make it better and better. But at actually playing a game by the rules, I'm pretty bad at that and everything, though. It's Wednesday, gray, probably gonna rain a little bit It has already. It's wet out there. And me getting up at like, what, 2 p.m. at this point, a little before that. And, you know, given barely the energy, don't have the energy yet to go down and pull my trash can up, much less do anything with the wood or go shopping or anything. I do have the energy to try to play a turn or two of this. But it's funny, I get to this point in the week and I'm waking up this late and I'm like, well, fuck, man, tomorrow's Thursday. And that means the next day is Friday. And I'm, you know, on the right kind of schedule to go dancing already. And why fuck with that? Well, there are reasons, but it's not pretty out. I don't know. It does slow down my playing of the game, but honestly, the amount of energy that I had when I was putting it in and was kind of excited, kind of like being around people or something, the energy that I get off that or that I fire up off that, I'm exhausted afterwards. You know, and it's not like, you know, a lot of physical effort or anything. I'm just exhausted, like from being so active and not just draining my brain right into the computer and sleeping. Speaking of sleeping, I'm having nice dreams or spending a lot of time in dream world. Anyway, let's get started. Why is the Italians got a major shipping success? They're probably fine anyway. They have been shipping huge amounts of supplies through, but they also won initiative and they're grabbing it because I'm facing a disorganized British unit. I can just overrun that and do some nastiness to it. We're hoping. Our quality isn't very good. That's the problem with overruns, but anyway. If we can break through here, well, the escarpment means I still have to batter my way through up here, and there's still another hedgehog there, but I just feel like taking advantage of this at this point is worth more than anything else. And we've already gotten City Albarani. It's just really bashing our way through these fortifications. And to some extent, that's something armor is not particularly good at. You know, I can even overrun with infantry if I'm at a 1 hex range. It's kind of funny, with me transporting armor by plane, and again, I don't think it's going to have that big an effect, especially with me parking the armor there and being unwilling to use it. But it does reduce the fuel costs. I could be transporting fuel in instead. But actually, so that was suggested as that's the thing you want to do is transport fuel in. Actually, it's not. Maybe if it's in range. Let me see what this plane is. So this plane cannot transport fuel to here without expending as much as it transports. It's only got a 1 token carrying capacity. It costs a token to refresh the airstrip I'm using. Now I can build an air base and base another plane there, whatever. This only has a 62 range. If I can find a place that's got a 62 range or less, but this is 88, 63 from Crete, and that's the closest. Do we have a range to Tripoli? I don't think we do. I got no idea. I could fly it into Tripoli, but basically the cost of transporting fuel is equally high as the cost of the fuel. It's as high as the fuel that I bring in. So the plane is absolutely useless for that. It is useful at transporting non-armored units in, though. But anyway, I've saved armored units. Well, not these guys. But I saved an armored unit as the last thing in the line with the thought of, Those are the things I want to transport the most. I want them to get the closest to the front. The infantry can make the long walk. Well, nothing can make the long walk. And the armor may just not go unless I can start figuring out a way to use armor effectively somewhere. Attack, although attritional, is mostly successful. I got an attacker option 1, defender lose 1 option 1 out of it. Just because of odds, I was up on 3-1. Didn't get a surprise either way or anything. Brits are standing where they are because if they retreat, then they're just disordered and able to be attacked, by a normal attack, which would be not cool at all. I'm in a breastwork here at least. I've got a way to get out of there. Sure, I might end up bombarding and destroying the Italian force. The other thing with an overrun, I could conceivably, I don't think I have enough movement points, but I could conceivably swing another force in, hit it again. Of course, I'm eating up what supplies I have up near the front, which is not that good for the Italians either. We're trying to make this a little bit more motorized than we have been. I've sent the Ariete division up here. Now, everybody was able to trace their supply from Tobruk of the division that I moved so far. I got the little fuel marker up here. Just, I don't use them as replacement markers for forces. I feel like that will just confuse me. But using the fuel marker to keep it near the unit makes sense when it's fueled up. I don't think it'll get to do anything. I could actually shift this guy here. They're fueled up, they'd get some additional movement off of that. So I'm pushing forward in an infantry fashion towards the 7th Armored here. I'm cutting this way, putting a threat on Mersa Matrua, making it clear to the Brits, hey, you better fall back with something. If you don't have something to cover Mersa Matrua, this division is able to take it, I bet. Yeah. This has been a big expense, though, right? The division itself cost 1 to move, and I moved some additional armor into place, units like this. So I think I spent about 6 tokens total on moving armored units forward to make this threat possible. 6 tokens doesn't sound like a hell of a lot. That's like an attack, right? But I'm running awfully low. Now, I haven't done my shipping yet or anything, but still. I was wrong. I've got a distance here. It's enough that I could actually ship a token of supply into Tripoli every turn. That's what I guess I do from now on. Pulling what I can with these trucks. I may want to create a dump back here just to get more and more supplies back out of Tripoli. 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, I wouldn't have the 4.5 movement points to create the dump here, but I can create it here and run back next turn. Because I'm having a really hard time moving all the resources that I have in Tripoli forward. I'm spending fuel there to get guys onto the map and flying forward, and these guys could be strap moving, and I did not strap move them, so I'll do that. Thing I'm thinking, yeah, I'm shipping all my resources to Bardia and Salam and Sidi al Barani because that's where I need them for the current offensive, but it's cheaper for me to send them to Benghazi. I can upgrade my shipping rate from 1 full supply point to 1.5 if I send it to Benghazi. Now, my trucks could shuttle stuff from Benghazi back and forth, and I'm not sure which is the most efficient. I think the most efficient way to drain Tripoli is to get it directly here through the trucks. But I'm beginning to get very worried about, I'm gonna need supplies along this route if I'm sending, divisional forces forward up there. So that's something to consider as well. That may just mean that the Italian offensive has to fucking stop, though, due to lack of resources. I do have a reasonable amount in Tobruk. If I send some of these trucks forward with their resources, they can dump them off and ship some from Tobruk. Of course, this headquarters can throw from Tobruk, but this headquarters is becoming too far back. And obviously that one is way too far back. So I may leapfrog another headquarters forward and try to get some of those resources forward. But the Italian army, with the resources it has in place, aren't enough they don't have enough supplies to conduct the offensive that they're conducting. They're running out of gas again, which will give the Brits time to recoup and maybe still defend Mersa Matrua, because I'm just not sure I can make it. Now, of course, if these guys get a die roll, they'll have half movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Could capture some supplies. If I get a lucky die roll on my reaction movement, I may be able to do something. And the Brits have like nothing in reserve at this point. So they will not get an action. They have no leaders. They have no comp group type things. I don't think they have, like the Italians have their equivalent to the comp groups. I don't think the Brits have an equivalent coming any further. So, and I haven't had to remove all of these Italian commands, which is cool. I wonder if this one was supposed to be removed. Anyway. But one of the things I'm noting is that my fuck up with the trucks, the supply capability of the organic trucks and everything, yeah, it definitely hurt the Brits. 7th Armor could have done a lot more if I realized I had a full supply point on that truck. But my dealing with that it's kind of been, I don't know, I'm trying to think about this. But also, oh no, I know what it is. The airplane, using the airplane to ship people in conjunction with those trucks, having additional possible supplies, like the Ariete especially, means that I've been shipping stuff too quickly to the front. But on the other hand, remember, I've been forgetting about strategic movement for most of the game. So I could have been getting things to the front more quickly that way. And the trucks could have been pulling more supplies to some extent than they have been. So I don't know, but I don't think we're all that much off the rails of reality at this point, even though we've made some major fuck-ups. I guess it's time to start planning my attacks and barrages and whatnot. It felt like it was springtime, a week ago, basically. And of course, given the time of year and spring coming early this year, it puts me in thoughts, because the year my wife died, I basically, my feeling was if she had lasted 2 weeks longer, there was good weather for a week or so, or a couple weeks after that. And, that would have just, I don't know. I know what it does to me. It brightens my mood. It makes me more able to do things and to want to do things. Of course, I was sick during most of that pretty daytime, but these gray days constantly, they weigh on you. They just weigh on you. And well, they weigh on me. I probably have seasonal affective disorder. From what I've been able to tell about my life, Phoenix was like the perfect fucking place for me because, sure, there are gray days, but there's like 2 or 3 of them in a row, and then, oh look, it's all sunny. It might be cold. It might be chilly. It might not be, Might not be above 60 degrees, but still, you know, and then with the heated pool and everything, it definitely increased. So weather-wise and everything, Phoenix was a good place for me. Spirit-wise, I think what that weather does to people is no good for me. Like, this town is much better spirit-wise. Buffalo was better for me spirit-wise. I think, you know, that having some sort of struggle is important. I don't know. Some sort of struggle beyond just, I don't know what, you know. There's too many fucking beached whales at the heated pool today. I don't want to go. The Italians get a couple more attritional results, but the Brits this time choose their option to fall back. They took no losses, instead giving up ground because this threat and whatnot, I think I have to give up the line. What that means is that the Italians lost a couple of good units, but they gained the ground that they wanted. Now the interesting question comes as to whether or not we get any kind of exploitation off these conf groups. Did overall. Now that I withdrew that Australian headquarters, it shouldn't be on the board anyway, and I feel like this is collapse. The question is whether I want to hit this truck and try to get supplies from it, or get up to here and launch an attack directly on Mersa Matrua. Mersa Matrua would be the big goal. I don't think I can take it. I don't think I can take it. Strength-wise, I'm relatively weak. There are Egyptians there defending it. The Egyptians will use the Egyptian army rule. They might swing my way. It would be the bigger gain to take, with no question whatsoever. But the truck is a guaranteed hit. I accomplish this. I threaten all these supply sources. I think I'm just better off going for the truck. What that means is I'm going to have to look for the rule on essentially overrunning trucks. There's a table for it, I'm sure, the capture table here. Trucks, yeah. Okay, trucks and loaded SPs. As per notes below. Remainder destroyed, remainder displaces. Okay, so remainder would displace, and the captured ones can move if captured in the movement phase. This is not the movement phase, is it? See, this is weird. Movement phase is up here. This is going to be in the reaction phase, the exploitation phase, which means I wouldn't get to move them no matter what. I would like to capture these trucks. I don't think they're replaceable, the organic truck, in any sense of the word. So I roll a die. And I get a 6. That's going to let me take 70%. So I'm going to get 3 tokens of full truck in my command. Now, I could keep moving after I take these. I don't remember what my movement rate was. I know I was close. I have like 1 movement point left at this point, which means I could slide over here and hit these guys from behind. 3 tokens is enough that I would have an attack. I'm not going to have enough movement to make it up to here. But I would have enough to make it to here. And these guys would be cut off from supply. Or I can just sit there with on the 3 tokens of supplies, which I think is the better move. I think taking a risk with these light armored units is probably a pretty bad choice. What is their quality like? I mean, it's okay. The comp group does not give me any combat bonus, though. I think I'm out of leaders everywhere. Other than Rommel, I'm out for quite a while. The Brits may get one later. And of course, DAK leader who replaces Rommel. Conceptually, I could, so we've got one British full truck here. We've got the Italian truck here. I had a fuck up because the colors being the same or close enough, I was like using British trucks, a 3-point truck instead, and I realized, wait, I'm taking it from the wrong thing. But it's just that brown to tan, never do that shit, right? I mentioned this back in the Central Front series that the original Dunnigan design had it right. The way they did things is they made one color scheme for NATO, or one color sort of palette, browns and greens and whatnot, and one color palette for the Soviets, pinks and reds, and kind of a purpley, I don't know, a mauve, I think, for like Czechs and whatnot. And then the reprint, well, the counters that I was using for the Volhers changes, which allow you to play with all 5 maps, which is why I have all these tables out here, in case you're not a normal viewer and you're just an OCS viewer for some reason, and you weren't interested in watching that old SPI monster going. The Volhers version that I have had counters that, like, you know, there were like bluish colored things on both sides. It was just really problematic in terms of that. And likewise with this, the browns and the tans are too close. They're the same side. These greens are a different side. And if you look at the Allied counters, you have the same problem here. Okay, these oranges are fine. The greens, they're the same side as the Italians as far as I'm concerned. The blues, probably same side as the Italians, especially since the Luftwaffe uses a bluish color. Don't do that shit. I don't care, you know. If this was a Napoleonic scheme where you're trying to represent the uniform colors of the things the way the La Bataille series does, okay, look, you have an argument, whatever. But I don't feel like that argument is appropriate when you're playing something of this nature, of an operational type game. The uniform colors don't matter. The Italians were not wearing this color, okay? They just weren't. Dress uniform might be a certain color. Don't worry about any of this. Make a color scheme that is close to the forces, you know, to something related to the forces, that's fine, but make sure that everything on one side is hues of a similar type, and make a sharp distinction between the 2 different hue sets, right? You don't have brown on one side, tan on the other. You don't have green and a greenish blue on one side, and then blues and greens on the other side. It's just not a good choice. It's not a good choice. Because, well, for one thing, there are people who have difficulty discerning the colors. And if the colors are too similar, especially on that blue-green scale, I know everybody's used to the red-green color blindness. Well, the blue-green scale is much more likely a larger percentage of the population is going to have trouble discerning those. It's just not as extreme, so it doesn't get the same attention. And that means that you're attracted and think that you have units that are yours and may start moving them or something that aren't. You can always check designation after you make that quick check the very brief check, is this mine or is this the enemy's, right? But you can't be pawing through the enemy's units in this system. Anyway. So I think that's it for the Italians, and that'll throw it to the Brits. They're getting some reinforcements. They're going to fall back. They lost their headquarters finally, but they lost the 7th Armored's truck. It's so appropriate that the 7th Armored has just pretty much been demolished in this in this one final act up here, because they've just been having so much trouble. Oh yeah, so replacing this truck. So like conceptually, I could replace a 1 SP truck with the 7th Armored Division's trucking, organic truck, but there's no advantage to organic trucks. That's why it's an option that really helps the Italians to get rid of, or that really helps the Axis to get rid of some of their organic trucks and replace them with generic trucks, because the generic trucks can ship materials all the way from, you know, wherever you need them, wherever it is hard to get them out of, to where you actually need them, and they're not dedicated to just like trailing around, you know, hoping that they can make that last little, hoping they can be actually useful in making that last little jump to the actual division. Okay. I don't want to withdraw this British truck as far as I did. He was here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 can get to here. This guy had a movement point left. I'm going to actually run him only back to here. The reason being, I need fuel for the 7th Armored to get it out of the way. The one remaining unit of the 7th Armored. Oh boy. I don't know, there may be something up there, but I don't think so. Wow. Well, that's impressive. And it's not like I don't have any replacement points or anything, so I can't rebuild it, you know, to its lesser quality at any point soon. Wow, there's like no power in this battery. I charged them up. I think they're ready. They go in this little line of batteries here, and this one was probably in my fucking piece of shit charger, but that's beginning to get suspect as well, which is problematic. But because that's the only reliable charger other than the camera that I'm using that I have. But things are beginning to look a little bit more like the North Africa campaign. The Italian threat and position was enough to degrade what the Brits are in. They fled with as much as they could. Unfortunately, now we start seeing the problem with foot units. This poor thing, unable to move quickly enough to really get out of the way. It's probably a sacrificial lamb. Everything else falling back to Mersa Matrua, down to this Matan Bagush, running supplies up still to Mersa Matrua. I don't know if that's wise, but because I don't know that I can hold the Mersa Matrua line. But the capture of supplies, the positioning, all that has come into play. This is the first time I felt like I had a clear chance to sort of outflank the enemy. I know I've gotten some flack about, yeah, you should use the 7th Armored to do this, that, and the other. You know, it just didn't have it in it. It didn't have it in it. It was getting hosed with trying to run through here. And given the luck of the die rolls, I don't think that using the overrun options where I didn't would have actually helped me. Because I think I got surprise against me. So we are bringing more forces forward. We're still shipping supplies up. I don't know if that's wise or not, but the thing is, I've got, you know, another hedgehog here. I've got a hedgehog here. This, I need to get the hell out of Dodge with these, but I think, you know, I can just burn them essentially, on supplies. The plane shifted back to Mersa Matruh, basically giving everything up, giving all this defensive positioning, the air base, everything up. Because, yeah, you know, taking this position was just that valuable, putting a threat coming this way, as well as the hits that were here. I made the decision to withdraw. I could have stood in those hedgehogs another turn or so, but it felt best to fall back. And it turned out, I think, to be the right decision, given that my headquarters fell to this guy. So that was an exciting turn. And now we see if the Italians can capitalize on the position, and whether or not I can start getting some of these Tripoli supplies pushed forward. I've moved everything into Tripoli, and I'm going to start shipping stuff through. I think I'm going to have to start using Benghazi as my transshipment point, simply because the coastal shipping is too expensive up to the front here. And, Mersa Matruh is not Bardia Solim. Bardia Solim are able to take 2 tokens each. Tobruk's able to take a full supply point. These guys only take 1 each, which is just not good enough. I seem to remember something about an Italian rail points or something like that. I don't know where the fuck that would be. I don't know. But yeah, this is not a solid looking position. And these big 1 SP trucks, boy, they kind of suck, because I don't know if I can flip them over and have tokens under them for the organic trucks. I think maybe I can, but just for ease of use and whatnot, I'm using generic fuel, because I only have like 1 brigade in each of these divisions left. The hits that the Brits have taken have been pretty significant. It's going to be interesting what I get to choose to rebuild for them. The Italians, it's been pretty easy to make my choices on rebuilds, except I made some iffy choices with bolstering up a division or 2, I think, early on. And you can see I'm spending fuel to move, other units forward as well. Wow. That's so unlike me. All right. I think we take a little break, because I never like to play 2 full turns in a row. It's almost raid time, though, and I want to come back and do at least 1 more turn while it's still light. So I may do a little bit of raid, and then, just say, screw it. Because it's starting to stay light. At this time of day, the darkness was already upon us not too long ago. It's starting to stay light a little longer. In fact, last time I went dancing, I left, and I thought I left the house kind of late, but it was still a little light out. There was still a little bit of that twilight left. Kind of said, fuck it. I want to see what happens. But then I was energized enough to go get my trash. And then something I've been thinking about for a while is, hey, let me split some wood. Let's see if I can do it. Well, if the wood's rotten enough, I can. And so I swung the axe, I don't know, a couple dozen times or whatever, and chopped up some of the shit that I have that, I don't know, most people probably wouldn't even burn, but I'm like, fuck. It's been out there since, some of it for 2-3 years, some of it for longer, I think. I don't know for sure, but yeah, some of it's pretty bad. But that's the stuff I can cut through. Anyway, although a little out of breath, I do still want to see what happens in the next turn, which means I rolled no weather, no events. Brits got initiative, and they're taking it, because that'll help me make that unit survive and strengthen my defenses, not have everything on mobile side and shit like that. get me a little bit more supplies into Mersa Matrua. Maybe build another hog here. Try to keep this road open. See if that's possible. If it is, that helps a hell of a lot. But there's a way around it. That's not great. Like, I can't do trace supply that way. And there's no opportunity like the Italians did. Here you can see tracking till October 41. The Italians eventually build, or the Axis in general, but I think it was mainly Italians doing it, a bypass road around Tobruk. There's no opportunity for that. That's something I don't like. If somehow Mersa Matrua becomes a defensible position the way Tobruk was, like, that should be possible. Now, Tobruk was already a fortress. So Mersa Matrua is unlikely to survive the way that improving Tobruk allowed the Brits to hold it for so long. Well, the Commonwealth. I'm trying to remember who was mainly there. Was it Australians? New Zealanders? I don't remember. My days when I was really excited about World War II were just before I started gaming. So we're talking about like maybe 9 years old or so, somewhere in that era. And then I started slipping further and further back, in part maybe because of games to some extent, because the image that I got of World War II was usually not the one I wanted. Although I gotta tell you, a couple of years into my gaming, a year or two into my gaming, I was like, my dream game was Third Reich still. So I was still into World War II at that point. But at some point or another, I kind of faded further and further away from World War II. And, it's been that way ever since. It's not like I have absolutely no interest, but I have so little memory. Honestly, I have very little memory of any of the history that I've learned over time, except what I'm learning right now, which is about the Transcontinental Railroad. I mean, even the Holy Roman Empire book that I read most of, and then stopped reading when I got to the appendices, well, the footnotes and whatnot. I was planning on making my way through them, and it's been sitting next to my bed for 2 years since then. It had been sitting next to my bed for a couple of years before that. Just really slow moving through it. It's a painful book that didn't give me what I wanted. Anyway, this will give us a chance to pull the Brits back. No! So this turn's British replacement, or reinforcement, is the 22 Infantry Brigade with 22 Guards Infantry Brigade. This is the 22 Infantry Brigade. What's the difference between the two? Almost nothing. 22 Guards has motorized. Oh, that's gonna fuck me up, and I'm gonna have to use fuel now, and I have it, the Italians didn't get far enough. I'm gonna have to use fuel to pull them out, I think, because otherwise they can only get to there, but I'm not sure. Maybe I just go there and say screw it. Well, what are the Brits doing? Well, I did build that hedgehog there. Used up the rest of the supply there, more or less. That gets me a little bit of a defensive line. I'd like to have another one here, but, whatever. There's a limit, but this is not a good defensive position, is really what it comes down to. But since I ate up the supply that was there, that was useful. I'm able to get supply into here relatively easily. It's harder into Mersa Matrua, so my trucks have been pushing more and more supply there. Consolidated my forces and split them up, spread them out in a more rational fashion than I had them, and used my trucks to get stuff into Mersa Matrua. I also built a hedgehog down here. I'm like, yeah, Alexandria is like potentially in danger at this point, so let's have the Poles start digging in. And that's it for the Brits. And unfortunately for the Axis, they have to slow things up. I could roll to see if these guys can move a little further. And these guys too. I'll do that. But this is the advance that I made so far. And supplies are becoming a problem back here, which means the next turn this converts to its second chip, which means it only has 1 full month to go before it, if it's recaptured, it generates stuff. But basically, I'm trying to drain as much as I can out of Tripoli as quickly as I can before I take that 1/4 loss. So we got dumps showing up in some weird places just along the way. I'm like, yeah, throw it as far as you possibly can and deal with it there. And yeah, we got Rommel moving slowly, not using up fuel. I just don't see the point at this point. I don't think his force is that vital. Much as, like, you know, it's highly vaunted as being sort of the key to success, and they're good units, there's no question of that. I feel like supplies are more important than speed, which may be what's wrong with me, you know, to a large extent. Some of the armor's moving forward. This guy is not. Chose to conserve supplies. It's kind of a pain because he can get to here off of normal movement, like off of combat movement. But I can get twice as far if I half my combat strength. I don't need to go twice as far, but I will if I want to launch an attack from there. The question comes down to, do I want to spend the extra fuel? Well, these are not part of the Ariete division, and I can't consolidate them into it like you could in most OCS games. There's so many independent units in this game that, you know, they didn't want to, Dean didn't want to give the kind of, he didn't want to make them incredibly cheap to use the way they are in most OCS games, where you can just, like, yeah, I'm just going to, you know, drag this independent along with my divisional force. Of course, you still have to pay combat supply for them no matter what, but that's something different. But yeah, you know, like, German unit there, not going to bring it, not going to bring it in. Waiting for Rommel's command to come up. Then I can use the 5th, I think it's Legion. I don't know what the LEs are. Are they just, I don't know, legumes. To move fueled all at once. Once I get the headquarters up there for the DAK and all that, yeah, maybe. Right now, I just don't feel any real pressing need to push as hard as I possibly can. Like, I feel like the Italians can take this. I feel like they're successful enough that they can take it, which is why I don't feel this incredible need to push forward that maybe historically was the case. There's no race for Tobruk or anything like that going on here. I am bringing in a bunch of artillery. Again, some of this is to drain some of the supply points out of Tripoli. Does that make sense? I don't know. I really don't. But if all this excess artillery is ever going to be useful, it's got to be on the map. And once it gets on the map, I can start moving it on foot, slowly trudging it up. It's not something I need right now, but I could take a heavy artillery, you know, I could lose a lot of artillery in the game. And I'm just like, yeah, might as well use this Tripoli supplies, because I've got more than I know what to do with for quite some time, and I don't want to, you know, it's just all the way out the game. I'm going to be getting more than I can ship. I did ship into Benghazi to get the extra 50% shipping rates that I can get there. And, you know, again, that's the concept is drain Tripoli, get as much supply on the map as I can. I will need that later. Even if it means I got to go short over here. Now, taking Mersa Matrua helps a lot. That's another supply point, another truck. Trucks are so valuable because they help me either pull out of Tripoli or move stuff from Benghazi where I'm getting the shipping reduction up to the front. Either way, though, that's a long fucking track. And once we start getting, you know, up to over here or whatever, I don't know. I think the truck still makes sense compared to trying to, like, the thing is, after Solom, everything's just a one token port, and there aren't ports along here. So Mersa Matrua is the last port at all. So it's like, I think it becomes more and more important to just start shipping supplies, moving the trucks back. Shipping supplies, moving the trucks back. Anyway, that's the end of the turn here. This, I think, means that I have to roll for the Greeks next turn and start trying to push this marker into the actual campaign. I think once that succeeds in happening, this marker stops moving, but I'm not absolutely certain. And then once it comes to the termination, all those Greek units come back for the Brits. That's the one timer that is really heavy on me, as well as, hey, the Brits are going to get other reinforcements too, but I don't think that's too heavy. Let's see what we're looking at. We're looking at April. Well, they're going to be getting a fair amount of stuff, including the railroad unit, which does me no fucking good because, you know, unless I can hold the line to Mersa Matrua open, it's about as far as I can reasonably use until things change, you know, until I get control of the field. Now, in Desert Fox, that first couple turns of the game, while the Axis is scooting, you know, all making the run for Tobruk and whatnot, those first couple turns, they actually allow the Brits to extend the railroad just a little bit. This one does not allow that. You need these specialized engineer units. There's only a couple of them in the game. And what you don't do, which the Brits, which in Desert Fox you do, is you don't expend supply on it, which is kind of interesting. You can make the argument, well, why are you wasting your supply points on that? Well, the reason for that is to gain a little bit of ground there in Desert Fox, and because it will be helpful later on, presumably, when you have the rush back. But you also have a lot of supply, and you kind of don't want it lying around where it's in danger. You can rush it back to Alexandria, but you really don't need it there. You really don't need it there. So I've always viewed that, like, extending the railway a little bit was a good move in that. You don't have that option here, and that's fine. It doesn't really make much difference either way, because it's only once the Brits break the El Alamein line that you're going to get anything up there. That's something I got to think about. Whatever I'm bringing in, I got to start thinking about building a line here, because that ain't going to hold. That ain't going to hold forever. It's Thursday. It's kind of pretty out. Cloudy, but sun poking through, wind moving every now and then. If I didn't, you know, I'm waking up at like 2 p.m., maybe later today, and have, oh dear, have a very short period of time to before my raid day starts, and whatever, you know, so much sunlight and whatever, and I really do want to play this in a way that I don't feel the same kind of duty towards taking a walk or something like that, much as I would love to, you know, just take a walk today I know it's not going to happen. Even just, it would even be nice to go to the store, grab a couple of things, the nearby store, some treats and stuff. Just can't do it. Can't do it. It's like, no, that's not my pattern right now. I can't break my pattern. All right, so let's play some DAK because we've gotten into a pattern that we're kind of comfortable in a lot of ways. So I don't know. No weather, no events. We started rolling on the Greek campaign to move forward into whatever the next stage is. Brits won initiative. They're flipping the turn order, forcing the Italians to go first. I don't feel like I'm under a severe threat right now, and might as well get the edge of a possible double turn if I need to run away or something like that. It can be helpful on either side. Perhaps even more importantly, it's this massive, like, potential advantage for the attacker. Like I say, it might be helpful for the defender, but you want to take that option away from the attacker if they can arrange, you know. I mean, there's no real engineering of it other than this, oh, let's try to make the other guy go first, whatever possible. But eventually it does get into a pattern where you can't afford to get rid of the position that you're in. And, you know, so there is some, but it's not like in Third Reich where, you know, you change your expenditures in order to reach a certain level or whatever. Anyway, okay, so here the Italians are pushing to get into a siege of Marsa Matrua. We'll talk about that a little later. Moving things forward, I didn't move the Ariete division forward. It's still got resources that were coming up to join it. I spent to move this armor here. It wasn't in striking distance back here, and I want to keep my options open, although I'm like out of supplies, man. I don't think I can actually launch an attack. Now, the Brits don't know my supply circumstances. And one of the reasons I'm out of supplies is nothing's moving up to the front. I've been schlepping supplies onto the map and pushing them into Benghazi so that I don't lose too much with that 1/4 loss. I'm still going to lose a shit ton. These trucks are all loaded up, but it's so expensive to ship supplies out of Tripoli. Even if I had started, say, this turn, pushing those supplies forward, I probably wouldn't have very much to move forward. I did a fighter sweep and deactivated the British fighter at no cost, which is kind of cool because I'm actually weaker. All right, now to here. A couple of the Egyptian units, not all of them, but a couple of the Egyptian units in Marsa Matrua defected and are now on the Axis side. I don't know how much that helps. You know, there's a reason it's an optional rule, but I think it's kind of cool, although it kind of sucks to have, you know, units of the same color on different sides, units of the same army on different sides. It's just kind of annoying in a way. But there's already enough of that with the Germans being almost the same color as the Brits. And I think I'm going to launch an airstrike, see whether or not I can take Marsa Matrua. Right now, what I'd like to do is be able to degrade this position without expending a shitload of supply. But I don't see how I'm going to do that. Now, from the British point of view, they're kind of regretting having set up this line. This is not a good defense. If you look at Tobruk, it's got a ring of forts around it and whatnot, and there's enough room to, to move supplies between the different units. Here, sure, I could just be in Marsa Matrua, but this multi-hex defense, man, especially this hex, is really questionable. The one that I built a hedgehog on. Because the Italians can simply cut that, and then it'll be all those units out of supply, and I'm
Did I build the hedgehog there? I'm pretty sure I did, yeah. Yeah, that was probably a big mistake. Trying to defend the rail line that way. Now, now I'm leaving hedgehogs behind, right? If I run away. So the Brits are really kind of questioning what they've fucking done there. Okay, so the Brits do a bombard to respond, hit the Italians here. The Italians don't have enough troops, even though this is disordered. They just don't have the strength points to push into Marsa Matruh. The Brits, on the other hand, are in a lot of trouble. I don't think I can hold Marsa Matruh. I don't think I can hold this line. I think reality is settling in, and yeah, this is, if I had dropped down, maybe, although this is still such a defect, but I'm just not in the kind of position that this defensive line was. And, well, with the collapse of the British command, I think they have to keep falling back. I'm looking at maybe something down here in this good terrain, and may have to keep falling back. This may be an Axis victory due to, in large part, some of the fuck-ups I made. Kind of funny, I saw a young couple walking down the street, walking with their dog. And I see this quite often, but it triggered thoughts in my head today. Some people suggest I get a pet of some sort or another, right? To keep me company, and it would to some extent. And having something to take care of would be of some value to my mental state. But I've never really been, I enjoy dogs and cats, both. Probably cats a little bit more than dogs, but I like the animal around. But there are a few things that really keep me from following that path. One, well, obviously, protecting games from cats is really, really tough. And so much as I love having a cat, and I feel like they're probably the better and easier to take care of in some ways, I'm just, I can't do it, right? Like I'd have to significantly limit my life more than like having my wife in my life did. But a dog, and honestly, that's the case in both sides. It's like having a human pet is better than having an animal one. With a dog, they eat a fair amount more. At least the kind of dog that I'd like. I don't want some little puntable. And both require a decent amount of maintenance. I have to get them food. I have to, with a cat, I'd train it to be outside, but early on it would have to have a litter box or whatever. Just the complexity of these kind of things is very disturbing. And then finally, there's the simple fact that these things die. And then I'd have a corpse again to deal with. And I don't like corpses. The birds outside are bad enough. And smaller animals are even worse with that in some ways because they're more like they die a lot quicker. Like rats. I love rats. They don't have the same sort of tactile sense that having a cat curl up on your bed does. But yeah, so I don't know. It just, the only time I've ever had any kind of pets was either when I was growing up, we always had pets. And then when I was with my first wife, we had a tendency to have pets. She had rats to begin with. Then we had birds, a guinea pig, a hamster, mice. The mice were, the guinea pig, the hamster and the mice were actually gotten as pets for our pets. Pets. That reminds me of Neopets. Long time ago. But, yeah, you know, but there were things she wanted. And I'm not sure why, because the rats were the most affectionate of the bunch. And, you know, not all that affectionate and not all that pet-like in the way that a cat, here they come again. Not all that, and then I was thinking, you know, wow, yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would do on my own at all. Like, it's just too much trouble and doesn't serve any positive side. So like, something like, other than the companionship, which is so easy to discard the value of, right? These kind of emotional type things, I have real trouble assessing their value. And even with a human, it's kind of like, I know what the comfort level is like when it's right, but what are the chances? You know, like, I have had what I consider, well, my two marriages were my two best relationships in terms of comfort level and whatnot. And some of that's just time, maybe, but there's a reason that they lasted as long as they did, as opposed to, you know, these 1 or 2 year relationships that I had earlier, or yeah, all earlier, which, you know, they were just clashes or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if anything's worth the effort there. Unlike DAK, which, you know, I know what its confines are going to be. I knew what it was going to be like, you know, even though I'm getting used to it. Anyway, yeah, I gotta think about the Brits and whether they're pulling out on their turn. And you know, it's funny because neither side is in great shape. The Italians don't have the supplies to press the attack that they want to press, and the Brits are like, wow, we're kind of fucked. Battery swap in there. But this is the kind of situation where I'm like, God, I don't know. Like, do the Brits have enough information on their own where they just know they're fucked whether or not the Italians have supplies? Or with the fact that they know that the Italians are so low on supplies and can't press this attack, does that, like, convince them to stick a little longer? I think the Brits think they're just too fucked to hold the position. I think they're just coming to the realization that pretty much no matter what, they're going to get screwed here, and they need to fall back. But this is the kind of time where sometimes I would roll a die to make a decision. Anyway, let's get on to that British side. Oh, it started to get dark in a hurry here. Just cloud cover more than anything else, although it is getting, yeah, it's raid time. It's part of it. But usually there's a little more light. Yeah, I made the decision with the Brits to pull out. I shipped a truck out of there. I haven't finished yet. I have some trucks to fuck around with. I don't know what the hell to do with them because honestly, I haven't figured out what my defensive line is. I pulled the armor out of Mersa Matrua and out of the line here, and I'm going to use that to try to dig in and form some sort of defensive line. I don't want to give up the good terrain here to the Axis, because if, you know, if they end up digging in, that's more problematic. I've got my poles back here trying to dig in at the last line of defense, and I've absolutely abandoned my railhead, fallen back to here. That's just a stopgap. It's on the way. Mersa Matrua, I'm leaving a couple of units there. Since they're disordered, it's hard to get them out. One of them had to withdraw because of the Greek campaign. So as Egypt is being threatened to this extent, the Brits are still like, yeah, we can shift more troops. We're fine. You sure? It's kind of amusing. And historically, it was kind of like this. You have to remember, this campaign, at this point, other than Tobruk holding out, it felt like things were kind of on a knife's edge for the Commonwealth. And I totally have that feeling right now. Now, I think I'm doing a lot worse with my Brits than I should be. I didn't get Tobruk. I'm not holding that out and creating this annoying, like, hard to cope with, well, yeah, you can eventually build a road around it and whatnot. But it also ties up a lot of the Axis forces to siege Tobruk, which means there's not enough to push forward here. Well, right now, I got tons of troops because the Brits didn't manage to push me back far enough. And I don't know, I'm somewhat regretting that I didn't get a more historical play out of it because of my fuck-ups, but yeah, you know, I still did get a kick out of it. I got to remove those disorders. You can see there's not really a defense here anymore, but I had judged that it was ineffectual, and the supplies I wasted on it might not be such a terrible thing. Speaking of which, let's figure out where our supply dump is going to be. I don't want to give it to the, put it at Alamein. I don't want to give it to the Egyptians because they could switch sides. Those guys are almost certain to. Oh, shit. Wow. The Egyptian artillery does not want to stay. These guys didn't have to check, even though they have a zero. They're the special railway repair units. In fact, they're disordered. Let's just put them here. They give me extra steps here. Nah, fuck them. They'll stay there as potential losses. And yeah, we'll recover the disordered units, and I guess that's about it for the turn. And maybe for the day, because the light's fucking going so fast. Although I would like to squeeze another turn in. Fuck raid for a little bit. I'm okay with that. The events. So, weather. A rainstorm swept up. I don't know who this helps. It covers the maps where the action is really happening. Over here with Mersa Matrua, and then back here where the Brits are withdrawing to. This one came up first, and I'm like, wow, that's bad for the Brits. They're going to be slowed, but I don't know if it means much. Oh, I got to screw with some trucks that I intended to start using and creating a dump. A nice big dump right here. El Alamein is actually the extent of the Alexandria supply point. So putting stuff here, if I'm going to build my line here, makes absolute sense, I think. 1, 2, 3, yeah. We'll be in supply up here, so yeah, that sounds good. By the way, that's another thing. In Desert Fox, the rail line is an absolute supply source. Like, there's no rail cap or anything like that. So you can supply all your units off of that, which means extending that is incredibly valuable to the Brits for their later advance. Whereas in this, it just speeds up my transfer by a few hexes each time I get it. In Desert Fox, it actually extends the range to which I can just operate without worrying about supplies, which is huge. Right now, that's here. Okay. Let me think about what, other than those trucks, what else? Oh yeah, the other thing that happened, the Italians won the initiative. They're forcing the Brits to go first. Again, go ahead, clear your way out. You're not really set up for me to attack, so the hell with that, you know? Notice, and I'm not going to take advantage of it, the Italians had some of these units under here under reserve. The units they didn't move. I could have fueled them up during the reserve phase. And the bonus for that is they would stay fueled until the end of my next turn. And grab this hedgehog here and just seal things off. On the other hand, I'm so low on supplies, I'm like, let the Brits just, they look like they're just leaving, let them leave. If they're giving this up to me, fuck it, I'll let infantry take it. It really doesn't make much difference. I don't need my armor for this. But I could see grabbing that opportunity. On the other hand, it might put an armored unit at risk that is perfectly safe otherwise. And, you know, let the enemy leave. I'm in the midst of fixing these trucks, but I forgot to tell you the event. Hoof and mouth disease killed off the rest of the camels. I think the Italian one's already gone. There's 2 Egyptian ones that are getting bagged. Okay, I've run into an issue here. I've been following these, which tell me stuff like remove 3 RTR. These aren't withdrawals, I think. But there's something missing. Which I just discovered. January 41. Let's see about, is there a withdrawal there? There is no withdrawal there. There's a withdrawal listed here, so I may have been cheating in favor of the Allies on this very heavily. Withdrawal 11th Indian Brigade, CIH Cav Battalion, 1 organic truck. I'm seeing here variable withdrawals. Roll an 11 to 66 on the Allied variable withdrawal and return table each turn. I don't know where that table is. But what have we been fucking up? That's a good question. There's the rebuilds, there's the events. You got a whole book full of events. I don't have a withdrawal and return table on here. And I don't see one on the board. This is not the first time that there's just so much information on the board that I'm losing track of this, but I don't know what the fuck this is. And move it to the appropriate deployment box on map D. Okay, that would be these, the Near East, Mid East, and whatnot deployments. I don't know where the fuck this table is. If it was in front of me, I might have run into it at some point. I also, I was trying to look up to see what's the deal because I've got to remove the 3 RTR Armored Battalion, which I don't know where the fuck it is. It may be a permanently, it may be a unit that got combined into a unit. I don't know. I don't know. And then I don't know what happens with it, but I think it just disappears because it's dead. But I'm having to remove this. And I think those are just removals and go into the Allied removed space. I think the withdrawals go up there, but I haven't been getting, I have no information in here that tells me to start rolling. And I don't have a table on which to roll that I'm aware of. So we got to swap batteries. Run into another one of these hitches in the game, man. And here is the variable withdrawal and return table. So I have been very friendly to the Allies throughout this period. They should have been sending some stuff here. Starting in November. And then the returns, I guess, is the entirety of the, no, it's one counter at a time. So I haven't had as much of a pull. I still have to look up to see what the fuck is happening with that other unit that's getting removed. Removed, I think, are gone from the game. I really do. I don't think they're coming back. I searched on the board. I searched in all of my removal boxes. I searched in the bag. No sign of it. Started looking through the reinforcements, didn't see it there. But it's right on the top of my counter tray. How about that? I want to look to try to figure out when it was supposed to be on the board, because it's not, and it may be, again, an error. It's certainly an error. It may be an error in the rule book. It may be an error that I made. I don't know which, but yeah, that unit never made it on. Wonder how many others didn't make it on. Okay, I found what happened, or when it happened. It was up here when the 2nd Armored Division came in with a couple of units. I know I got them on the board. 3 RTR and the 5 RTR were supposed to show up. And then we did an exchange. And I think what happened was I read this, skipped over these, and did the exchange, because that all looks like stuff I've done. So I guess I remove the 3 RTR, and the 5 RTR comes in this turn, because whatever. The way this is presented, I think it would be highly unlikely that someone would accurately get the forces on the board. All this shifting back and forth. Desert Fox was bad enough, okay? I will not lie, it's one of the weakest things in the game is all the exchanging and reinforcement of units. But I honestly just suspect that you're gonna see this kind of fuck up happen. Period. The end. There ain't nothing you can do about it, and live with it, because it's just gonna happen. Yeah. All right. And now we're going to, not this booklet, no, not this booklet, which is holding my page, but over here, I guess. So we roll this after the Allied variable returns reinforcements, which don't start happening until April, and I marked them down. What I didn't do was mark this down. Now I'm just going to do this turn, and fuck it. This is in March of 41, which is here. We don't have to roll. Good enough. What would I have lost? Well, this is an interesting question. Yeah, it can fill out that whole Sudan set and that whole Greek set. And basically additional units would have to get shipped out there. Okay. So to some extent, those missing units probably account for some of the potential units that wouldn't have been on the board. Infantry brigades are probably better than the armor the way I was playing. They probably served more purpose. So we'll just live with whatever the results, whatever we got out of this. And I guess I start doing the British turn. The thing is, you put all this careful research into designing the game, getting the units coming in the right time, swapping them out at the right points and everything, and you make a system that is so cumbersome to play that I really just don't think that many players are going to get the fruits of that, of all that research, right? And then, clever thoughts about, hey, what are the chances of this kind of withdrawal or whatever? Well, what were we looking at? A pretty good chance that all of these units would have withdrawn already into Sudan, which would be Infantry Brigade, Armored Car Battalion, organic truck. What is the Sudan? This is to deal with the Italian West Africa or East Africa stuff. So that could be up to 4 infantry brigades being there. That would be devastating if you got really unlucky with that. So, you know, I think the Brits got away pretty light, having a couple of armored battalions not make it in time. And the Brits continue most of their pullback. I'm still holding this Matan Bagouche because it's my air base that protects these. Yes, I could fall back somewhere else, but I've got a fortification here. Got some supply, not much, but I don't really need to worry about supply when I fall back onto Alexandria. I'm going to have huge quantities of supply available to me to defend here. So now the question is, you know, can the Axis break through this El Alamein type line that I'm beginning to construct? If that happens, it's probably over. But we're on, I guess, the Axis turn coming up. I think I moved this forward. I can't be sure anymore. You know, all the shit with that has confused me a great deal. So we'll try to, I gotta use the restroom, unfortunately. So I think I'll pause for a bit, but I'll come back and try to finish up the Axis side of the turn. Let me put an arrow to indicate that. But yeah. But everything's so fucked up at this point that, yeah. Okay, with the rain over here, I was able to actually move units over here reasonably well and continuing my supply screwing around, although I did throw supplies into Bardia and Solemn. Probably should throw one into Sidi Barani instead, just to get supplies up front. Now, is this wise, or should I be schlepping the stuff from Benghazi instead of trying to pull everything out of Tripoli with trucks? I don't know. It feels like, you know, 6 on one hand, half a dozen on the other, honestly. And I could probably calculate out what is my best means of getting supply to the front. Is it shipping it, or is it transporting it from Benghazi? I suspect it's transporting it from Benghazi, but I'm so fixated on my trucking that, you know, I'm just dumping supplies all over here, which someday will be useful, and they don't disappear as long as they're not in Tripoli. But huge amounts of supplies. I did get a replacement point, which I built another machine gun unit and shipped that in. That'll be off on its way. It's a good quality Italian unit. For here, I set myself up, grabbed the Hedgehog. I've got reserves back here in case the Brits try to do something funny. And although I'd have to fuel them up, which I probably don't want to do. And my bombers were ineffectual. The combination of the close terrain of the village there and the Hedgehog, even with a fairly large amount of units, but not as large as I thought. Uh-oh, I may have disordered them. I thought this was good. I forgot about my artillery here. So that's an extra 2. That would probably have hit me over. I think I still failed to hit. So I'll leave it as it is. So now the question comes down to, A, do the British want to try to use some of their artillery to disrupt some of this huge force of Italians that's besieging them? And in a way, that's sort of a can't lose proposition, because if I drain the supplies here enough, then I start shipping units out instead. I'm only allowed to ship one token out, but that token can be an entire fucking brigade, which is actually bigger than a token. It's an SP, I believe. Right? I don't know. Anyway, I know you're allowed to ship bigger units into smaller ports, which is kind of a fucked up thing. But I could evacuate one of my decent units and just say screw it and give it up further once the supplies are gone. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to give up all this supply. So I think I kind of have to fire my artillery. But whether or not the artillery fires, do the Italians want to launch an attack against a non-disorganized force? Chances are they're in a lot of trouble trying to hit that thing. 2 units disorganized. We're going to pass on the attack. I don't know if... We don't even have artillery nearby, really. Like, we have this unit, but it's not close enough to hit. I don't know where my artillery is. It's limping its way up slowly. We're hand-hauling the artillery. Great. But we just don't have the supplies to fuel things up right now. And that's my own, management of spreading supplies through the desert or something for no apparent good reason, except that that's where the movement points drop me. I really probably ought to just get some of that stuff to the front. I don't know. It's just, it's a nightmare. Most OCS games, you have at least I think, you have a fairly good rail net that you're pulling your supplies forward with, and then your trucks are being used just to get you into the combat position. But here, you've got a supply nightmare where you really have to haul all your shit all the way up using mechanisms that are not very effective at all, especially for the Axis, I think. Eventually for the Allies, it's going to be problematic as well, because that rail is not going to get very far if we end up breaking and the Axis line and pushing it forward. Part of me says, hey, we should call this as an Axis victory, but no, I want to see, can we break through? Can we have a successful offensive against something like the Alamein line? And, I don't know. All right, that's probably it, unless I come back in the dark because I've neglected my raid too much. Got to be careful. There's a lot of little things, like my turn counter was in the wrong space this turn. I had it on the 22nd. I had already done reinforcements and stuff from there, so it had to move up. But anyway, it's just something to keep in mind. Got to remember to hit this every turn. Now, right now, it kind of hurts because right now I'm in a period where it can't happen. But come April, well, there's rolls for returns from Sudan, which isn't going to affect me because there isn't anything there. So it's not until May that I start having forces being pulled for the Reluctant Enemies game. All right. I think that's it. Well, today is Friday and it's almost raid time, and I was going to just say, screw it, I'm not gonna play any today because I spent last night in a peculiar form of self-abuse. But then I noticed when I came out, hey, we're on the last turn of the month. So let's try to roll this out. The turns are taking a little bit of time now. There's a lot of pieces to move around on the board, the supplies to shift around and everything, sometimes looking stuff up, especially counter stuff. The combats themselves add a few minutes to it.
it is not a simple combat system. You know, it's not like just look up on the CRT and roll it out. There's a lot of facets to it with the air power and whatnot. So, but anyway, I think I can afford an hour or so. We had an event which is Rommel's out of contact. It just basically means I can't use his counter for certain things this turn. I didn't look up too much because I wasn't planning on it, but cannot use his reactive roller's action rating mod this turn, which kind of means he's useless. But, and it's kind of a shame because if he's off the map, we forgot to load these guys here. Anyway, the Brits won the initiative, and I'm trying to decide if they need to go. I think they do, because they need to refresh their air units. They're not disordered or anything. Also, speeding up, see, here's the thing. If I let the Italians go first, I maybe drain some artillery fire and then get to withdraw. But, you know, I get to withdraw next turn. It's just whatever. I don't know. Oh, and the rain goes away. Thank God. I could use that here. It's not a big storm or anything. It's just, okay. The Brits continue their pulling back and working on building up a line. I've got to think about, you know, just what I want. I think I'm going to build here, 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 and here. But I'm not absolutely certain about that. And I also built one back at El Alamein. The number of these is not at all prohibitive. I think it's just meant to stop you from doing something like, you know, digging in like World War I style. Everywhere, right? Like just creating this huge fortress of them. I don't find it at all a limitation, to tell you the truth. Over on the reinforcements, I want to just kick into this. So I got an armored car battalion that showed up over near Cairo, but the campaign status roll apparently has changed to a 3. It's not in a little gray box. I don't know why. And now the AT ditch is constructed, which means, yeah, it's going to be fucking hard to take that back from the Germans ever, but you know, whatever. I mean, look, the Axis armies are going to be in withdrawal. Torch, you know, if this follows anything like historical, and they're not going to get dislodged from this line that the Brits are throwing down. So far, I'm looking at this as an Axis victory, pretty much no matter what happens, just because of, you know, the failure of Compass and what I think is a faster expansion eastward. But, you know, because they can't win the campaign. Like, if the campaign deadlocks here, they cannot win it. There comes a point, and maybe the game doesn't reflect this, but the fact that there's like U.S. troops showing up, unless they're showing up over there, I don't know where those U.S. troops are coming from. I didn't think there were any deployed to the east. I thought all the U.S. forces were used in the torch landings and everything, which kind of forces the Axis to just run all their units back. So we'll see how the game handles it. I haven't noticed anything yet. Just fiddling around with the Brits, who don't have a lot to do here, right? And my babbling on film and everything, that ate up about 25 minutes, 25 minutes. Just as a feel, because there's almost nothing here. How the more involved Axis turn actually took less time, about 15 minutes. So, I don't know. Okay,
So what happened? Well, I probably made a mistake and moved Rommel around this way, thinking, I'll take Mercer Matruh up. Well, if I couldn't take it last turn, who says I can take it this turn? Sure, the forces are smaller. That does make it appealing. But two of my stacks were disordered. Maybe I'm not done, because maybe I can take it. I'm just looking, but no, I can't tell you, because there's this stack here. That's all a stack. That's what the opponent sees. So yeah, I see too much there. I know he's withdrawing forces, but I don't know what he's got there and what he doesn't. And these guys are in that stack too. All I can see is one unit, and whatever that unit is, it really doesn't matter. But let's assume it's the infantry brigade. What I don't know is that there's only an infantry brigade holding it at this point. And with me taking two disorders, I would have to throw in my 26-point artillery, which would cost me 4 tokens. My bombing run did not work. Speaking of which, this is why Rommel would be useful. I could have used a hip shoot with German planes only, but that's all I'm using, and done an overrun. But I feel like the Italian army should be able to handle, this siege-like situation, and I should be pushing forward without expending fuel, of course, because, with what I can. Anyway, yeah, I think we're at the end of the turn and the month, and I will continue to play World War I style Africa campaign. This is here. We can see ridiculous amounts of supply got there, even though I was shipping as much as possible out. I think I just have to, I think I do have to commit some trucks to shipping from Tripoli all the way to wherever or whatever. Maybe not to here. This was just like, let's dump it in an emergency. But, April is no better. It's a 4-1 again. I have no coastal shipping, basically, which means I can get 1.5 into Benghazi. Right? Yeah, I'll look it up, 4820. But yeah, I've been shipping stuff into Benghazi to get that faster movement, and I've got some trucks, not on the way from Benghazi, they're all the way from Tripoli, but I'm going to commit them to just shipping materials from Benghazi at this point forward. At some point or another, though, Benghazi's port limit, which is only 2, would be exceeded, right? And I then have to, if I have enough shipping limit, I have to start throwing stuff there. Oh, I forgot this guy. But he can't go anywhere that's effective except Tripoli. So yeah, that's just another token he flies in. That I just wasn't paying attention to. All right. I guess we put this up. I don't know.